Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel where I review anything and everything. And today we're getting into another Lego mock, a Star Wars base inspired mock. Previously I did a Lego Desert Planet mock, which is inspired by Tatooine or Navarro from The Mandalorian, or even, I forget the name of the planet, but the one from Andor. You know, that kind of more gritty vibe. It was a basic setup, just using basic parts, and all the links and descriptions were below for those parts. I'm gonna do the same here, all the links and description below for these parts, because these are Lego style bricks. They aren't Lego bricks. And this time around I was able to re-up on a different color because I'm going with gray, but I knew the brands from the other ones that I purchased that worked, and only one of those brands from my other video I didn't really like that much, so I'm not going to put that one inside the link in the description because I didn't like that particular one. But all the rest of them that I'm going to have in the link description, Lego style bricks, are compatible with Lego bricks. Now, I had mentioned this before that I had plans, and I attached in those videos, I'm going to do the same here, where I had a concept of what Lego could do with their space theme, because they didn't want to, it seemed like they didn't want to put out any kind of mocks or, you know, natural builds for, not mocks, but their own builds for Star Wars themed locations. And I came up with this idea of different things they could do, similar to, you know, some kind of desert type of city or something like it, a more elevated high class city similar to Coruscant in Star Wars. And I had mapped out certain things they could do. Well, now I'm gonna actually put something like that together and obviously connect it with that Star Wars theme-ish. Doesn't necessarily mean that it is Coruscant, but you know, inspired by that type of theme, just like my Desert Planet, generic name for an inspired theme of such similar planets in Lego. So right here, I just kind of framed up. This is not exactly what we're gonna go with. What I'm gonna do differently though inside this build is most likely I'm gonna break it into two separate videos for the builds, because the other one was a very long video of about 4.5 hours. And this time around, I'm going to also try to reduce things by cutting out just my random or raw thoughts. Sometimes that's relaxing just to be able to do that. But I also too don't want to have too much in the video that if it doesn't need to be there, whatever the case is, or just my own brainstorming and thinking, even though for the most part in that video I was always constantly moving and trying things out and putting things together, which I had asked in a short what you guys thought and if you guys want to see a long form video, and everyone pretty much said, well, one person responded and said yes. So I'm going to try to still be somewhere in between that. Now, little sidebar I want to throw in before I start tackling all the aspects of the build is, I have purchased this and I did a review on this earlier in a past video that I purchased these from Target. I don't have a link in the description, but you can look this up. BLDR Forest Pack. They are Lego style bricks, and it's pretty much a little forest set. So you can kind of see inside the bag here, and I did a review on it, so we're not going to go too deep in it. But part of the reason why I bought it was actually for this, what I'm doing here. I wanted to do a centerpiece. One of my main concepts that I had when I thought about this was, I took it from a scene that was in, if I'm not mistaken, I want to say it was in the season 1 of Andor, if I'm not mistaken. And in that, there was a scene where you guys in the description down below can kind of comment this, where they're in Coruscant. They're walking along a big platform. It's these two people. One was, I guess, a trader from, both of them were traders from the Empire. This is coming off of the time of, this might not be Andor. It might be a part of either the Mandalorian, or it might be part of the Boba Fett series. But if I'm not mistaken, it was two people who were part of, I think, Moff Gideon's group or something of that sort. And they were meeting together after they now reformed, and they were meeting together on this platform outside at Coruscant. And it was almost like this kind of like central city area where it was like a big open platform walkway. In the center of it was a huge rock. I'm sure those who are fans would know what I'm talking about. There's a big rock in the center. And then, you know, you just had this open platform. So I wanted to kind of take that element as a centerpiece, not be too big, but then also have like a walk path that goes all around, and then a center area And I wanted that center area to have like a little monument thing. Now I wasn't going to build a giant rock. It's not going to be that same kind of thing because that would be too crazy, nor did I want to try to replicate that. But I came up with the idea of using those plant pieces to make a huge like tree that would be in the center, because this is going to be the type of planet where trees and stuff like that are a rarity. And I kind of, in this little pack, you have options for different green colors or pink colors. And I wanted to go with a pink color because I wanted to feel a little more rare of a plant in the centerpiece. So that's going to essentially be the centerpiece. Now, this is just a little framing in terms of how I'm kind of playing around with some ideas, but obviously it's not going to be just exactly like this. But I just wanted to kind of show this. This is going to be that centerpiece, and then you're going to have, everything's going to be elevated. So that's one thing I needed to speak on as well when I was talking about plans and want to do something like this. I want everything to be elevated. Now, I'm not going to make it overly high, but it's supposed to simulate that it's super far into the sky. So I'll probably make everything around 5 bricks tall, just to give that sense of that it's not on the ground, but more the illusion and you using your imagination, because it's too much resources to build it super, super high. And I did think about at one point in time, well, I could build similar to the city that I built, the desert city that I built, do a design like that, and then just start building up from there on top of those rooftops with pillars that bring us even higher to the sky. But I think that becomes a little too much right now for a project. So this is just supposed to simulate what the sky would look like, not comparative to that mock, but just in itself. And that in a city like Coruscant, you normally have at the very ground this thriving city, underground city that's very cyberpunk like, very just kind of in ruins, but like, you know, like neon lights is what I imagine in my head from certain scenes that I've seen. Neon lights, very like almost, like I said, cyberpunk like what's that movie again? Blade Runner or something of that sort, or maybe Altered Carbon, which is a show on Netflix. Things like that, where in the bottom it's just very dark, wet sewages, neon lights, you know, everything's like dirty, like you come into like a bar, everything looks grimy and dirty or something like that. You know, almost that vibe that you also see on Arcane, which is also on Netflix, that anime Arcane. So that normally is what you would assume to be on the bottom. This is going to be reflecting the top. So you guys get the idea. So I won't ramble on too much about it. So just to kind of start, what I realized from playing around before I even got started with this kind of little layout is that I wanted everything to be centralized, but I don't think I'm going to be able to do that. And I realized that I'm going to end up having to make this asymmetrical. It's going to end up having to be where, just to make things work and fit, because the plan is you're supposed to have the centerpiece, then you have a walkway area going along the sides. And then on the outskirts of the walkway area would have been like a building or something like that. So you would have like, maybe, let me just grab a piece that is a decent size. I'll grab this. And then maybe you have like a little building connecting to it here, and it's built up. Imagine a full-on square. And then, matter of fact, what I'll do, just for the purpose of creating that illusion, and I said I wasn't going to make these things run long, but I just want to kind of be able to really give this illusion of this. So bear with me, you guys, a little bit, because I do like getting into this and this being just a relaxed video that I can just go and just build. So we're going to use this to simulate like the building structure. Imagine there's 4 walls on it, and that's the height of the building. You could see there that it would be like this would be attached on the side there, elevated at the level of the street level. And then a person would be able to come right out of the building, walk the path. I have to build like a railing wall around. So it's only going to be like 2 studs wide, because I don't want it to be just open off the cliff, unfortunately. So it's not going to have a lot of walking room as much I would have wanted necessarily, but I kind of have to just go with that. And then, you know, you'd have another path that connects it to the center. I don't know if on all 4 corners, but connects to the center. And then at the center, you would have, you know, a spot where people can go and sit and, you know, walk around that centerpiece. But obviously you can see already that what starts happening is not enough space. I don't want it to go beyond this plate, which is a 32 by 32 stud size plate. I like that idea of everything being compact and being just kind of contained in this space. I don't want to go beyond that. That's like important to me. So where I'm going with in my mind, I realize is if I make things asymmetrical, I might be able to do this a little better. So how would that work? So one, I would probably have to move this entire circular path a little more to this side. So say if I lean this whole center area a little more to this side, one side is not going to have buildings on the side of it. The whole thing's going to be pushed to the side. So that gives me more room for a building on this side. And then even when it comes to these pieces here, what I'll probably end up doing is for some of them, I will be able to bring this piece of the platform more inwards. You know, maybe something like this. And then maybe a little something more like that, and then start building it on the side here, the platform of the building. But then if I do that, if I build this kind of like here, I'm not hitting the piece I want. Where is it? There we go. Part of it is hanging off the edge, but the majority of it is still inside, or at least half of it is still within the lines of it. So that way the support system I build for it will still be on the main platform. So that way, even though half of it's hanging off the edge, it still will have enough support that it's sturdy. So when you start pressing down on it, it's not going to make it where it tips over because you got the support on this. Because if it was completely hanging off the edge without supports, obviously something like that wouldn't work. And then you'd have to build a whole support system underneath it, coming inwards to the support of the walk path. And it becomes such a hard task. Whereas if I can at least have some of it on the platform, the base plate, I can build straight down onto the base plate. Even if it's just like this 3 studs deep into it, I can do that. And then that will give it support. And like I said, if this whole thing is more moved this side, I can build a full building on that side. And then even if on this side it's a little different, it doesn't have to be the same as this, where this one's kind of a little bit off to the edge. What I could do here, for example, on this side would be something like the building is hanging above the walkway, and then I'll have supports coming down. A person can walk underneath the walkway, underneath the building, and it still gives that feeling of that the walk path is there. This is just above it. So I'm gonna have to play around with that, but those are some ideas I had after the fact, after I made this little layout, and realizing I'm gonna have to do some things. So I played around with this layout a bit just to get a sense of it, and it didn't really work. On top of that, this centerpiece too, I wanted the plant to be in the middle. And that's not really gonna work either, because then you don't have enough walkway room around each side. So what I'm gonna end up probably having to do is, and this also helps me out with just making it work a little better, is I could put like, say, let's turn it this way, you can see it better. If I put like extra support on this side, the whole thing's gonna be probably moved to the side anyway, but you're getting this idea. I'm gonna put it down like that. And then that way, when I put it deeper onto the side, yes, this is not the center of the walk place, but it's still somewhat centered. People aren't gonna walk really on that side, and that's kind of how it will look. So that's kind of where I'm going with things for now. And so I'm mentioning this to you guys now, because what I'm gonna do in this format of the video, as opposed to I did last time, is I am gonna stop the video, take pause increments, and I'm going to build out a few things, and then I'm going to start recording after I got a few things down, so that way it doesn't drag things out as much, and it allows me to kind of make some of these casual mistakes and then kind of correct them. That way I'm not doing that all on camera, because I did that before, and though some of you guys may have appreciated that, it definitely extended the length of the video dramatically longer. So that's what I'm going with now. So stay tuned. I'm going to be back with rearranging this mock in a way where, like I said, it's a little more suiting, and we get a couple things started, and we're going to see where we're at when we return back. All right, you guys, I got into the groove of building stuff, and then I totally forgot, like, I need to be recording. So just to kind of give you guys a little structure. So I ended up doing where I'm doing all 4 of these edges now. It's a little bit more leaned towards this way here. And I do hope that this angle, that you guys are able to see things at this angle pretty well, and that I don't need to raise the camera up higher. I hope this is okay, because I like you guys to kind of be able to also see a little bit underneath. So what I'm gonna do is this: you've got these coming here. I'm building this up to five studs high, 5 bricks high. This is gonna mimic on this side right here after I build it up. That's gonna be like that. We're going to have this is going to get risen up as well, and this is going to be risen up as well. Now, these right here are broken down into two parts. I have them now on just kind of these little, on some bricks right now, but this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stud wide, and that is, if I'm not mistaken, like a 8 stud wide here. So I got to break those into two parts to have the right size. And so I'm just pretty much formulating a full square. I would have preferred to have a little more space in between the centerpiece from the bridge, but from the walk path bridge, but it's only going to be 2 studs of space in between. I'm just going to go with that for now because, like I said, it will give me more building room for all around here. I can build structures here that are going to come from around that. And I can build some structures here, a little something over here as well on that side too, because I'm going to have 4 studs on this side. Right here, we've got 5 studs. We'll have 4 studs on this side, and this stud is going to have only 3 studs. But like I said, what I can do is build partially up and then build over the walk path. And then since I'm going to have a railing across on the outer lines of the walk path, the support will come down onto the railing of it. Now, what does suck is it is going to make these paths look a lot smaller once I implement the the railing, which is just, I'm just going to use some of the, this 4 by whatever brick size, 1 by 4 bricks, but it will, realistically, if we're imagining that this is hundreds of feet into the sky, if I don't do that, we're going to run into issues where it's not going to look right. You're not going to have people walking around and risking falling off of that height. It just won't make any sense. So that is what is going to be there. So what I'm going to do, slap that on there. Now that I have at least this base, the rest of the building process will be so much easier because the rest of the process will be so much easier because this foundation will allow me to know everything else that comes from this point will be based around this. And I'm going to lean the plant, you'll see afterwards, a little more as far back as I can on this. I may even make it cross over the hollow point here. So we will see when it comes to that. This right here, we're going to build. And once again, I'm going to do this here. And this is going to come like this. So what I will do, I'll do 2 because I like to make sure that everything feels pretty well supported. So what I'm going to do here is I will use, this should align here. Now you can build your supports any way that you want. It's no specific way that it has to be done. But this smaller piece and this one here are going to join at that point there. Gives it a little more of a solid structure. And before I start building those up, I'm just going to do the same here on this side here. So what I'll do is take this piece here, put that down there as my guideline. Take this piece here, which should be, now this is just easier if I just count them out, but I'm just trying to measure it while doing the counting. There we go for that. Align this up correctly. So like I said before, I had this idea from a long while back, and I'm really a fan of the idea of doing this, a simple build that's going to be, like I said before, elevated. Let me build these ones guidelines as well while I'm over here. It should be right here. This one should be this is gonna come here and here. So there we go. All the guideline structures that you can see them there. So all I'm gonna do now is just build these up with another 4 on each, and then that will give us what we need there. Now, one thing is I am dipping a lot into this gray, and of this brand Briks that I bought, I think it's called Feleph. I forget, but like I said, it's going to be in the description as far as the bricks that I bought. Matter of fact, let's just say here on the box of this really quick. Feleph, yeah. F-E-L-E-P-H. Those bricks are nice. So even though I only had of the 1x2s, I wish I could have had the same color, but I didn't have that option. So it is going to have this kind of alternating color with certain things. But, you know, here it goes, like here, that color. But the problem is I trust these bricks. I didn't want to buy a whole nother set of bricks that I don't trust. And so that was the issue when it comes to that. So that to me was more important, to have bricks that I trust over the ones that I don't. Let's put those there so I don't get those confused with all the rest of the pieces I got all around me. I got a bunch of other pieces all around me, all over the place. I'm trying to move some things out of the way here. But that is, like I said, a little bit of a shame that I wasn't able to do that. And they might have those options somewhere. I tried to look as best as I can, but I couldn't find it. So this is what we're working with here. So it's going to be a little bit different in colors. But like I said, the idea of this entire build, even with the last one, is the idea that it's supposed to be affordable. I didn't want it to be an arm and a leg. Some people make these mocks that are arm and a leg. And part of this is making something that didn't cost that much, because all these bricks here, you can keep in mind too, I'm using some of the bricks from the other thing. The platform here is from Strictly Briks, which I love. Their platforms, because their base plates are actually a plate high and not your typical Lego style plates, which are smaller than a plate high, which makes them very compatible. And with aligning things up in sizes, even the city roads, I've done videos on that before. But a lot of the parts that I've used before, that I bought for the other build, I still have a lot left of it that I could use. So I just want to do this in a gray color that's more like city-like color for, like say a Lego Space City that is more upscale. These will be the colors, as opposed to the way it kind of works in the Star Wars universe, for all the people who are fans of that know that generally, most of the sandy type of planets are kind of depicted as being more poor. And then the ones that are like gray and steel and whatever are more depicted as having more resources. So this kind of goes hand in hand with that. Now I didn't want to mix too much of those other colors that I have. The sand type of colors into this mix. So I'll try not to use them if I can, but I think I'm going to have to use some of them every now and then, which is fine. There were, as far as just like plates, different types of plates that are like 2 studs wide, some of them 1 stud wide, by whatever the other measurement is, kind of simulating more like beams. Those, I could have bought a set of gray ones, but I just couldn't kind of jump into that at the moment, and they weren't on sale. So if need be down the line, if I have to use some of my sand colored beams like that, we're going to call them beams when they're like 2 studs wide or shorter, instead of plates, even though they're still technically plates. But just so you guys understand what I'm saying, I will change those out if I end up having to use the sand colored ones. Like I got like these and like these from the last build. These all came from the same pack, and they're great. I used a lot of them too before, but they're great. But the thing about it is, if I need to replace down the line, I'll probably wait till I get them on sale. It's the same company, but they had a gray. I think it's the same company, and those worked fine. But I would then replace them if I end up using some of those here. So that's the plan when it comes to that. But at least for now, it just saved money, just to at least get the build in the way things are looking. But like I said, part of the point of this project was I want you guys to be able to, besides for it not costing too much for me by keeping it kind of simple, I want you guys to be able to replicate this as well, without it costing an arm and a leg, because I think that that's what makes it fun. Some people do these crazy mocks that are super intricate, super all over the top, and I think they look amazing. They never tell you how much they're costing. Most of them are costing more. The mocks get so elaborate. They're costing more than, say, some complete Lego sets altogether. It definitely gets really ridiculous in the price, and I'm not knocking that they, are able to do that. But, I think one thing that really takes the fun out of the building process is when you realize you can't even afford to do it, or it costs you so much that later on you got to regret it. So when I did the first mock, I want to say that ran somewhere almost about like $100 for all the parts. Now keep in mind, when I say $100, I'm not saying $100 for the mock I built, because like I said, I had all these gray plates that you see out here. I used maybe 25% of them or less than that. Not even close to that actually, but some of the bigger ones I use more of. But all these plates, and if you run out of the big ones, you just combine some of the smaller ones. I used just a small portion of those plates, so I still have it. So when you say $100 to build a mock, that's not true. I probably could have built 3 of those. No, I won't say that, because the bricks I started running a little bit low on. I still have some. I'll even show you what I have left. That's what I have left of the 1x4 bricks for that one, which is not a whole lot, but it's enough to build another. I would say I could build at least 2 of those mocks with that price, I would say. As far as the 1x2s, I've got that much left, which they do come with a lot, and I used up a lot. Now, some pieces I never end up using either, which is these. I never used those. Those are the masonry bricks. And these were the bricks that I bought that I wish I could have bought more now that would have matched these. But these bricks here are from a company that they don't work good, so I don't recommend them. They're not very good bricks on their own. It's not even a matter of them being compatible with Lego. They just aren't very good on their own, because the little peg on the inside is warped. So a lot of times they don't fit straight. If you guys go back to that video, you'd see that when I was building that was the case. But anyway, so the point I'm trying to get at here is, for $100, I could build 2 of those mocks. So you could say, let's say that they're $50 each for the mock plus extra pieces left. Because even though after that I would run out of the actual bricks, the 1x2 and the 1x4s, I would actually still have a lot of the plates left, which I'm using now. And I would have a lot of, obviously the base plate that I build on, and a few other things. So yeah, in that regards, I honestly would tell you that, that's that. So before we start getting into, you can see it now. Now, it's not perfect, because I do wish that it was, I'm fine with the elevation. I don't, like I said, I don't want to get crazy with the elevation just to show, hey, it's elevated. The imagination is supposed to be that this is not here, that this is, thousands, like 1,000 feet down below. But I do wish I had more space in between here, so these things were more further apart. And even though I could do that, I won't allow me to build on these sides. And this is important, what's going to build this thing up, because I need to have like little places along the side of this that give it that feel that, so that's important. So that's what we're going with now. There's our base. Now that we got a base set up, it's going to really allow us to kind of really do this a lot easier, because now we got some structure. The only other thing that I'm going to do is I've decided that's going to be the direction of where my statue plant is going to be, my decorative plant is going to be. So if I put that there, and I thought about hovering it 1 stud over the edge, but I don't think that looks good, even though it gives me a lot more, not a lot more, but an extra level, extra lane of studs over here. But it gives me that ability. It's not a big deal, but I don't think that would look nice overall. So we're going to do that. I need that framing around it like that. I wish that I could do without that, but I kind of really can't. Now, I could get rid of this little step up box here. Just put the green base that you see inside there down, which is just 4x4 circle, and then put these around it like how they're here, then that will be a free empty stud on each side. But that's just a little corner spot. And the only reason why I'm doing it like this with these is because if I use these ones, I don't like the way that looks. It doesn't make it feel like it's boxed in. So this color is too much the same as this, and I'm not gonna like that look. So that's why I did it like this. And the reason why here I use 4 of these plates is because I'm not gonna use these plates for almost anything. So I'd rather use those than use, say, 1 of these, because I can actually use that for something more than I can use these. So that's why I did that. So what I'm gonna do is make sure I have it facing the way I want it to face, which would be this way, where the green is kind of facing more forward, and the 1 empty back spot on the green is over facing the tail end. I'm gonna try to press down on this so it locks in. And this is where if I had a single plate, it probably would have worked a little better. But once it's locked in, and I don't plan on moving this anytime soon. And what's great about the base on this, let me see if I can get that in there without too much of a hassle. Okay, is that where it was? I hope so. I don't even remember if that's the exact position I had it in before, but let's hope so. And that it's not touching the branch, the main tree. So now I forget my thought that I had. I forget my thought. Maybe it'll come back to me. But anyway, so that's what that's where we're at right now. The centerpiece. Now I had a couple of 4x4s that I wanted to put over as a little kind of like bridge spot. I think I might, do I want to put it like this? Because if I do it like that, let me see, then I could put this perfectly aligned like that, which works pretty good. And there goes our bridge, our little bridges. So now it's not connecting on all sides, but nonetheless, it's not too bad. It's not too bad. Now, if I want to also, what I might end up doing is I might end up taking like, no, this one's not long enough. I need a long one, but not too long. So something like this maybe. And what I could do if I want, depending on where there's a building structure, I could insert one of these here. And then what I could do with that is make it a spot where like you have like an extra bench maybe along the path, you know, set up a little bench because I gotta have the railing going around. There's no room for benches in the main walkway. But if I open it up to this, then I can have a bench at like certain spots. So maybe like here, wherever. But first I got to figure out where I'm building my buildings first before I start putting the benches. So that will be a part that's going to come later. For right now, we're going to go with that outlining here. And like I said, you can see how that looks. The little walk path to come over. Now I would have preferred for it to be just seamless. The problem is for me to do that, I would need to have a, say like a 4x2. I would need, I'll show you right now. And I don't have it in the right color, and that's why I can't do it. Otherwise I would do it. I would need one of these, a gray version of a 2x4, because then I could put that right here. I would put support from underneath it, and then it wouldn't have to attach to this. Now this actually saves me on Briks because now it's just mounted on the top there rather than having to be, sorry, just putting away some of those other bricks and plates and stuff, rather than it being placed, you know, rather than doing the whole buildup. I'm sorry, I had a little brain fart. So that's what we're gonna do right now. What I'm gonna take the time to do now, I'm gonna pause the video, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm going to figure out where I'm gonna come with my building setups, I don't want you guys, that's the part where I said to you before, I'm going to try to avoid those kind of things where I'm thinking, where I'm processing, and I'm going to do that. And then when I come back, that's when, I will, once I know how that design's going to be, then I'll show you guys. So that way you aren't seeing all the in between of me thinking, because sometimes it takes me a good 30, 40 minutes to figure out how I'm going to do it, play around with things and whatever the case is. Now, a little sidebar, I wanted to say that what I was telling you guys before about if you want to go the route, I'm not going to do this, but if you want to go the route of building this on top of a city already, if you go back to the video of my desert planet setup, Desert Planet mock, you would, even though it's Desert Planet City mock, but we're just a Desert Planet mock, you saw how the buildings were inside that. If you had that same layout, but on a gray base like this, and those things were built in gray like these, then on the top of each roof, you build a support rising up to the point where you have this same platform, then you could do that. And then you could just essentially build the same platform on top of that city if you want to do that. It wouldn't be hard. Obviously, some support areas would be taller than others because every building in that structure was at a different height. But with that being said, I'm not going to do that. But if you guys want to do that, just know it's not a hard build. It's just going to be very brick consuming. And then also, too, when it comes to you opening it with rooftops, that is where things are going to be hard, because a lot of those buildings, I tried to make them somewhat modular. I did make a modular. So when you pull off the rooftop, that will end up being an issue if you build the city on top of that. But like I said, it's something you could play around with if you want to go that route. It becomes a lot more brick intensive when you start figuring out how to pull up roofs, how to balance out the support system and whatnot. But anyway, like I said, guys, I'm going to pause the video and then I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do, and then we're going to come back. Okay, so just to give a little bit of update where we're at with things. So I added these just as kind of little as like a temporary placeholder here, because I'm just kind of framing out where I'm going to build extensions to the structure. So that's why those are just, they're not permanent fixtures, but it's giving me an idea of where I'm going to start building some of the building structures where something like this might be like a little extended shop. Just, build some little walls around it. Might be like a little vendor. This might be a building, small little whatever that would be. I'm going to mostly probably do like no residentials in this build setup, but mostly shops and things of that sort. So maybe like a kind of high-end market, maybe. I thought about too over here, but if I do this, I have to move that a little over. Maybe about doing a combination here to where it connects. So that way it would end up being like, maybe if the entrance way is here coming in this way, then this will all be part of the rest of that structure. So curve at a curve, you have all that extra interior space. So I'm going to see about that. Obviously I got to build some more stuff over here. One thing I do want to do somewhere on here is I want to do, like I had mentioned before, just a little bench sitting area that will extend outwards so some people could sit on a bench outside of the center area. I built up this little bench here. It's just got the 1x2s holding it together. Obviously you could see there from this angle. It's just 2x4s as benches from my old set of those plates that I showed you earlier. And, just the 1x2 bricks holding them together like that. It's not enough room for me to have a bench everywhere on it. So that's unfortunate. I would have wanted, if it was a bigger in scope, I would have wanted to have more benches along here and all over, but I can't really do that. And I'm not going to sit the benches, on the, like if I did this as far as a sidewall, I'm not going to put a bench on top of that wall piece, like a little plate leaning over, because then realistically someone leans back and they're falling off the edge. So that is not going to make sense. So I can't do that. It's not enough room for that in that space, unfortunately. So the only thing I'm going to be able to do is just leave that as a little bit of a walkway. Unfortunately, these plants also kind of touch into the area. They kind of do sprout out a lot, but I like the look. So far I'm going to keep it like that. But as far as this, I'm going to probably just build the walls around it to come around, It's not going to be a lot of room, but it is that centerpiece. People can walk by here. They can sit on the bench here as people walk by. So we'll see. For right now, I haven't decided to build the wall, start building the wall around it. I could really kind of let me just do that just for the sake of creating a little bit of that dynamic here. So we can kind of see it getting built up. I'm just thinking, because what I could do is if I put down, which I do have them, a 1x1 stud piece, if I put that here on the side here, and let me see how that's gonna play out. So I was gonna say I could put this on the, you guys can't see it from there, sorry, this on the edge like this. If I had a 1x1 stud, which I do, I have them in the tan color, that would be able to go down like that. And then I'd be able to just build this one across with the wall. But unfortunately, I'm going to have to use some of those grays in between it. I could have a little empty space, but that still doesn't, I don't know how safe that looks. I'm going to have to end up using some of the light gray ones to cross over from there, so that's not going to work in terms of that. So I'm going to have to use some of the light grays regardless. So I'll just do that for the 1x2s. I don't know what I'm having such a hard time squeezing this into that spot there. There we go. So I know it doesn't look as good with the light gray, but like I said, that's all I have to really work with right now. So it is what it is, and I don't really have much of a choice. I do wish that, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So another option that I could do, because this is not working out the way I really want it, I don't have a lot of these pieces though. Let me see how much extra I have. I really don't have a lot of them. I could go the route of doing railings, but I don't have a lot of these. So instead of just a wall around, do with railings, but I don't have enough of them, I feel, to do it right. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to go that route with that, which does kind of bother me, because I could use them, but I don't want to, I feel like I don't know if I'm going to need them for something else later on down the line, and that would really bother me if I don't have enough of them for later on. So that would suck. And here, if I do it like this, I can reduce some of that space on here, because you see here, they still connect at that point there. It doesn't look as, I don't know how I like the way that looks versus just having one of these here, but then it feels like it's really taken away from that walk path to a degree. So I gotta see how I feel about that, because it works, but then if I didn't have these little corner edges here, it opens it up a little bit more to be a little bit more spacious, even though visually I'm not as much of a fan of the look of it like that. I gotta have these little gaps there, unfortunately, and I really don't want to have those, but nothing I can do about that. I might be able to put something else in that place later on. I'm not too sure. So I gotta see. These might just be placeholders, but I'm just doing this now. Later on, when I after I take a pause and come back, you might see these things have changed. But this is just to give us a sense of the layout of things to a degree. So that would be if it's got the walls up, how it would look. So it's not a lot of space in the center, but of course it's enough that a person could walk. You have someone sit on the bench. And it's funny because I just mentioned about having the bench and the wall part being too close to the edge, but nonetheless, even though this has some distance, you still technically could just fall right off the edge. So like, that's not a great look, but I don't think I want to build that wall up any higher. At least not right now. I don't want to waste too many pieces on it. Maybe I will end up doing that, just at least for that backing where people sit. Let's do that just for that look. This is definitely running through my bricks, and you know, that is definitely a big deal because I'm going to need them for building things up. But there you go. Someone can sit now back there without worrying about falling off. So it does give that aspect of that. And those other gray ones that I said, the 1x2 darker gray ones, I may end up giving a shot to use those, even though, like I said before, I don't like that company. Those bricks are pretty bad. So I may not end up going that route. One other thing I wanted to show too is this piece that you see over here. Now, I built this up. First, I want you guys to get a good look at it because once I put it in place, I'm not going to lock it in right now, but when I put it in place, I just want you guys to get a close up to see how it was done before I put it there. Now, this right here is supposed to be a support beam that's going to, this portion of it is going to be on the base and all this is going to be off the base. That's why it starts to come higher up. And the idea is that it's going to be an extension that I had to build up with a good amount of support. So that is the reason why you have these beams here to kind of keep it locked together. These were just done just like you see on top of here, side by side. And then I started them on the bottom here, side by side, here and here, here. I threw this one across to give a little bit more width to the support, but also to kind of give that interlocking cross section to hold these a little together. That's what these are two here on the bottom to hold these together. These were from, you know, the tan pieces that I just said I had in those little bags. And obviously you see it's just repetitiveness. Now here, this is built up with the 1x2s going across to give that cross support. And the reason why is because the reason why this had to, at first I just had it like steps coming down like this way. I had to build this up and I was just going to build it straight up, but I also needed to integrate these going across to give it more support. So that when we have pressure come down, and I added this part after the fact. So this piece is going to be not as secure as what these were. I normally had it just coming out to this piece here, but I had to extend it out a little further than that because I'm going to try to have a little bit more going on. But essentially, this had to come across to give that extra support. So when you come down like this and press down, it won't really bend it as much. Now what's going to solidify this is when I put a beam across top, a platform across this is going to lock it in place. So you won't have any of that movement, even though I just showed you some pressure. Now, I thought about putting this in the center. Oh, this side, let me turn it this way. But I don't want this to line up here, and I'm going to tell you why. Because, well, maybe I can, because now this piece is wider. I was going to use a piece like this to connect it and then come off into the bigger platform, but that's not going to secure it as much. So I built this platform here. I took one of these as the base that's in the middle. Then I took these two on the side, and then this one to go across. What I wanted to do with this, and I don't know if I'm going to stick with this idea. It could actually be used for a big building structure, which I could do. I don't want to do that though. The reason why I built this though was I was going to use it as a way to, let me lock this in first, and then I'll be able to visually show it a little bit better. All I'm doing off screen is just locking it in place, so don't worry, don't mind. It's actually not going in place as well as I wanted to because I gotta first take this off the top. So when I press down on it, I could press in that section. That's why I can't have those things up top while I'm pressing down, because I can't press on this because I'm trying to press through that top layer, which is not working. There we go. So now it's falling in place. Okay, there we go. That should be good. I'm just, for the security purposes, I'm gonna take that off so I can just press down in this area so it's solid. Then I'm gonna lock this on. This is just really to have a cross beam go across, and I don't have thinner cross beams, so I had to use these big ones like this. But it's good because they have more connecting points. And what this is here is a landing platform, which should be able to support some fighter ship sizes. Like I said, I could lock it in here, but if I lock it in here, what I'm gonna end up doing is I'm gonna take a couple of maybe 1x4 yellow beams that I have, and I'm gonna attach them underneath to this piece here to hold it even tighter. But this is what, I'll centerize it now, being that I've showed you guys what it is. And then I would do that. Now I'm gonna take those beams and I'm gonna pull them out now because I think I may end up keeping the structure, but if I don't, I can always take it apart later. But let me just, these are the 1x3s. I need 1x4s. I got those right here. I could probably use the 1x3s, but we'll do this. And so I'll take these, the 1x4s. I'm gonna place it underneath and I'm gonna place this one underneath on this side too. Try to get underneath here. And so that way it's connected from pulling outwards, because the idea is this is supposed to support weight, but it's elevated, as I mentioned before, and you can see it there, it's elevated. So I want it to be able to hold weight. Not that I'm gonna press that hard on it anyway, because we're not building a structure on this. I might do a couple of things around it here and there, but you don't need that much because you want it to be a flat platform for that. And then I think what I would do also, just to enhance the strength on top, I could put this here just for the purpose of having that enhanced strength of connection. Now, I don't want to come all the way out because you want to keep the walk path clear, because there's going to be a wall coming all around here. The only reason I'm leaving all this stuff empty right now is because as I build other structures, I got to make sure that I'm going to see where I'm going to, how I'm going to do things. But nonetheless, that would be that extended platform. Yes, it totally goes outside of the bounds of this here. But what I didn't want to do is I wanted to stay confined into the base plate in terms of not building beams coming down into this nothingness. But if the beams are not coming down and touching the table, or if this was considered the nothingness, I'm fine with that because it's not touching that. So it's still extending from this platform, which is fine. And it's built up enough where it can hold that structure, that weight without bending. So that's good. That is going to be for ships landing. Let me pause real quick. I'm going to grab a ship. Okay, so just like in the past, on my past videos, I used my custom dash Rendar to be my example character. So in this case, he is going to be waiting here on the docks, waiting for a ship to land. I'm going to stand him a little more forward because that would be where the wall is right behind him. And it's funny because now that I look at his height, these walls don't look very secure because they're really not tall at all. But I don't think I could waste a lot of bricks on them being that much higher than that. So we'll see, because that would be a lot of bricks to waste because they're going to trail all the way around the sides here, going around. So let's see what we have here. First, we're going to have Plo Koon and his small microfighter ship. And one thing I always thought was great about microfighter ships is that, yes, they're not the large version, but when it comes to, you imagining in atmosphere, similar to like a speeder bike. Just imagine them just to be a different form of a speeder bike that, unlike a speeder bike that really can't maybe fly high, these can fly high. Almost like a, I forget what, like the cars, like the floating cars. I don't know if the land speeder is considered that, but if you guys remember in episode 2, which was probably my favorite Star Wars movie, when Anakin and Obi-Wan are flying around in Coruscant, perfect example, their little ship had an open top. It wasn't a closed top, like a convertible air speeder car is what it essentially was like. So you could think of microfighters in that same way. So I think that's always cool. But here you could see he can land and it's not a problem. He would then get off. He would, enter the little city area, obviously maybe walk around the, come by the statue area or these buildings if he's got to walk around to the buildings once I have them built up. So he'll be able to come and be a part of the area or whatever the case is. Like I said, there's going to be probably more of a commercial area where I have like vendors and stuff like that. Maybe I'll do a separate mock for something similar for a residential. But as far as this goes, this is going to be probably more commercial. Now, just to kind of reflect on a bigger ship. Now, this is my custom ship. I showed it on the channel before. And so Plo Koon is done with his business. He flies off. Okay, sound effects included. And now a bigger ship comes. Now, this is probably the biggest ship you could have on here, but it is my custom ship, my Grief Karga ship, because that is who flies this ship. And let's see that he can land on here, and it supports it without a problem. The weight, obviously, you wouldn't really go much larger than this ship here. But as stated just a second ago, let me move some of these things out of my way. So this is the absolute limit, and it's not even pulling on the weight of the foundation of the structure. So what makes that nice, hold on for a second, this is not clamped down all the way. There we go. So what makes this nice, that it's not holding up, like it's not making the whole platform move sideways for this weight, is that I don't even have the structures on it. So once the structures are built up on this other side, it will even balance it even more in the weight. But here you could see, like I said, that's the max size that you're going to be able to have with that. But yes, so if the doors opened up and someone's going to come out, they would come out from there. The person will be there to greet them, and then they would now walk around the little city area. So one thing that I am seeing happen though, but this could be fixed by just incorporating the walls, is you see a little bit of play right there, and that little kind of gap right there. It's not much. Like I said, the thing's doing its job. Those foundations that I put there are now pulling against this, which is keeping that stable. But then what I can do is put one of these 1x4s right there in the middle to create the wall aspect. And then that would fix that without there being a problem. And like I said, I could do the same on the other side if I need to, however I'm going to do that. So yes, but generally speaking, it is holding the ship that has just landed in the area. I think that looks so nice and so cool that it's able to do that. So just wanted to finish off with that. Like I said, I'm going to take another pause and I'm going to kind of play around with a few more things. I just wanted you guys to see that before I end up just putting it together without showing you guys that, in case you guys want to do the same thing in this build, if you guys are going to copy this same build. And yeah, so I'm going to pause the video now and we'll be back when I get a few more things done. Hey you guys, so forgive me that I don't have my mic plugged in and I don't have any additional lighting going on. We're just working off daylight here, but I just want to make a quick note before continuing some things. I just had this thought while I was in the middle, just kind of doing a couple other things. And this is something I'm not going to do, but at the same time, the expanse of this would actually be pretty good. All right, I ended up plugging in my mic, but I'm just holding it in my hand. So what I was thinking of, I'm not going to end up doing this probably because it's going to be a lot. It would end up requiring a lot more bricks. But if you guys wanted to do this, you guys could. I realized that originally was saying before, I tried to build inward so I would have room to kind of build on the foundation, like here, going all around a little bit, have a little bit of base to go off of. But essentially, I'm going to end up having, like, say, a guardrail along the walkways going all around that I'm not going to have any part of a building to. So right here where there might be a little building, and that's just a placeholder, like I mentioned before. But the same way that would be a building in these spots, obviously I'm not going to have wall there, but all these places that have walls, a person could, if these were all the way extended out to the very rim here, the very brim or the siding of the very limit of the platform of the base plate, a person then could, instead of having, this makes things ground level with the buildings, where the buildings are all ground level. And like I mentioned before, maybe on this side, I might do one that's elevated. But if all these were extended to the very outskirts, you then could build straight up off of this. So imagine this is all the way to the end of the base plate. So you have no more room to build off the base plate. And this now becomes a lot more of an open area away from this centerpiece, which means the centerpiece block here, if you want, could be bigger. It'll have more of a gap between, like I mentioned before, that I don't have here. And then you could build up off of these things. So this would be, imagine that this is that borderline. Sorry for the rant. I'm trying to get it to come out where it makes sense. You would then build straight up off of here, because remember, this wall will be going here. The wall would also be going here. So then you would be building up from this side of the wall, And once you have a good amount of height, say a good, like maybe, I don't know, 7 to almost 10 studs high, you would then build, that platform above it, and it'll be floating. The negative about that, which I'm probably not going to go with that design, besides with, like, it will take a lot more bricks because now you're elevating really high. I'm going to do that with one portion with one of the buildings, but I'm not going to do it with all the buildings, is because what ends up happening is that now this little kind of plateau garden area, park area, becomes below the height line. You can't see where I'm pushing my hand up, but it becomes like below the height line. If the rest of the buildings are this high, it starts to create a thing where the buildings now are higher than this platform and light isn't really getting here. And I felt that in my mind, even though that's still like a nice look, it's still something that you would have in certain planets and whatever the case is, like I'm sure in Star Wars or even in modern times, our days now, where we might have building structures. And at the very bottom is like a little kind of, park area between tall buildings. Like a lot of times you'll have like these kind of complex setups where you have tall buildings and they surround like a garden area, a common space garden area. So it would be something similar to that. But I feel that in the scene that I was kind of trying to base off of from that Star Wars scene that I described in the very beginning, this would end up creating where there's no light getting through. And that would take away from the idea that this is reaching the plateau. This is the height of it. And people will walk around calmly at the very top. And even though some of the buildings are going to be a little higher based on their roof heights, but they're still not at a higher elevation plane than the park and the trees and whatnot. Whereas if I start building the buildings up higher off the border edges, it's going to become where, like I say, you can't really see how I'm putting my hand. Okay, this will give you a better idea. It will start being where my hand is like the base of the building, so it's like that high. It starts to become a little bit like if that's the base of the building, that high. And obviously now it's going to be even taller than this because it's the base of the building. And you're going to have those all around here. It starts to get where this becomes very sunken in. I don't think it's a bad look, but it definitely will require probably almost, I'm not going to say double the amount of bricks, but you do have to expand this outward. So I'd have to get more plates to expand the whole walkway further out to the edges. And then in addition to that, I would now have to start building everything higher than off of the rails. So I have to building higher than. And then another thing too that comes into mind too, which I'm going to try to implement later on, is would become the area of stairs. How do you access these things? But what I'm going to do, even when I'm going to do this, some of these buildings are going to be more than 1 story tall. So they are going to get kind of high. I'm going to try to implement a visual elevator system similar to what they do in the Daily Bugle set, the modular Daily Bugle set, which is where you show like a 2-dimensional elevator. You can't walk in it, but it's supposed to simulate that someone can get in it and use the elevator. I think the X Mansion has something like that as well, but I'm not really too sure. And so that way we'll just use our imagination to go, okay, they got up because they used the elevator, but the elevator is going to probably only be 1 stud deep. So it might be extend, let me get a brick. For example, I might extend it outside of the, like building by 1 stud, and then it would just kind of build it up to where it looks like, okay, that's the elevator, you'll know it. And it's not going to be something where, it's protruding out that much or they can actually fit in it. But just to simulate that, because I think that's the only way. And trying to build stairs in these setups just is not going to be that good. Now I could do a spiral stair similar to what I did on the other build on some of the buildings, but that wouldn't make sense for all of the buildings, especially where this is the kind of environment where stairs should be internal to the building and not external to the building. But since this is also a lot more of a high-tech location, more premium location than the Sand Planet mock, Desert Planet mock, they wouldn't really have stairs unless the purpose of the stairs was for the elegance and not for the convenience, because it just wouldn't be as practical. You know what I mean? It'd be more of an elegance thing. But if you have access to an elevator, obviously this is not like in our modern times where some buildings are too old to have elevators. Some buildings are modern, have elevators. Every building would have the ability to have an elevator here unless it was an artistic choice to have its stairs. So some of these smaller buildings, by giving them elevators, is going to make it easier, because then I don't have to worry about the stairs. So that's going to be the plan. I'm going to go with that. I just wanted to do that rant because I wanted you guys to know that possibility in case you guys want to go in that route. I'm not going to go in that route, but if you want, like I said, you can expand it all the way to the border, and then from there build up off of the wall or the fence or whatever you want to call it, the borderline that's going to go around the whole thing, the wall guards. And I am going to do that, like I said, on this side partially. I'm going to do that on this side. I may do it on these sides too. I think I'm going to do it. These are going to have just leveled at that level. This side is going to probably be above it. It's going to be coming off of the walkway here. Like I said, how this is here, and it's going to extend above it. And that's kind of what I'm going to do there. So yeah. All right, you guys, I'll be back when I add some more updates. Okay, so just wanted to update a few more things as I progress through. So this is not affecting the build going further, but I just wanted to point out that one thing I realized too, even though I like the way that the plant is, but when I was just speaking about maximizing the size, which I'm not going to do by putting the borders of the walkway all the way to the full extent of the base plate, which I'm not going to do, but I just want to throw that as an option that you guys could do if you wanted to do that in your building process. What I did think about though is that if I was to downsize the size of this area here, because the plant is on, you could see it there, it's on a 2x2 circular plate. Now, and then that is on a 4x4 circular green plate. If I was just to take the circular brown plate that it's on, the 2x2 size, build a little wall around that, it would condense the size at least a full brick or stud wide on each side, condensing it. That would then give me a bit more, like a substantial amount of more room. But, that's something where I don't think I want to do, because, and let me get my brick separator, because we should always have that on hand. Let's see if I can move this up here for a second, and if I can pull this out without messing up the rest of those branches. And then what I'll do is, because I don't want to take this out of here because that's going to be too difficult, I'm going to grab an extra one I have inside here. Just to show that to you guys what I'm talking about. And I get it, I don't have to do all that, but I just really want to. So here, you can see if that was on there just like that, then what I would be able to do is bring this. Now I brought it back one full stud, and then what I also did is brought it back that way, one full stud, and now it's also compressed on each side. So even if I did do just to kind of frame it out, I'll put these down just for the purpose of framing it out a little bit, not closing it off completely. I'd have to put 1x2s on the side there, but you get an idea of how that would look. So I'm not going to bother to get the 1x2s. You guys could just kind of fill that in with your imagination, but you get what I'm showing here. I've had the 1x2 in front and in the back. Essentially now you see how much smaller that footprint is, and it gives so much more room to walk around, but it just doesn't make it look as, you know, lustrous and all over the place. Like the tree is obviously still there, but I think that little green on the bottom and all that just enhances it to a degree. It really doesn't look that bad though. I'll be honest with you. I thought it was going to look less, you know, prominent, but it doesn't look that bad. And I could put, like, say, one of those green spots here, maybe right in the front without putting the 2x piece and then putting one over there. So in theory, I could do that. You know what? Let me just see what that looks like. Not that I wanted to take away time from the build, but at the same time, let's see how that would look. So I could do that, and then obviously I could put another one in the back, and in that case I won't close up that front, but you know, it's blocked off by the little plant. And then I would be able to put one on the back as well, like I said, if I wanted to do it like that back here. But overall, and it's not bad, it really isn't. So I could see my mind already like working the gears and wanted to be like, okay, that gives me so much more room in that space for people to walk around. So that is actually really cool that it gives so much more room, but at the same time, it really does detract from the sake of that. It's, you know, it doesn't have this whole thing. I know it's big, but it just feels like this more of this huge monument type of thing. So I think I am going to just stick with that. Okay. And like I said before, the other way actually wasn't that bad. There is that side of me that kind of wants to try to maximize all the space that I can, because it is a lot more cramped than what I originally envisioned in my mind. So speaking about ways to expand the edges, or like I said, shrinking the footprint of the tree. But at the same time too, I do like how grand that feels, but maybe on down the line I might change my mind. Maybe I might make it smaller, because I want to have, if I did shrink that down, I could have benches on the side here, and it would be a little bit more of, you know, a grander space in terms of people being able to walk around. So we'll see what we end up doing with that. What I am going to do here on the sides, and another big aspect about that too when you're putting all this together, is because you're building upwards with the pillars, it makes things a little more concrete, a little more like, you know, you can't really change things as much, because if you change something slightly, you now have to rearrange where you're going to put your supports. And then in addition to that, you now have to also adjust all the other structures along with it, you know? So for example, if I pulled this back and I brought it to the edge, just for example, this side of the platform, not only would I have to probably rearrange where I put my the pillars that are supporting it, not necessarily, because this angle right here, it kind of works, but then I'd have to now add an additional 4. I'd have to squeeze in one of these in between that space. So if this was moved all the way here, this would have to now take that space. And then I'd have to then figure out how I'm going to make this connect with that and X, Y, Z. So it definitely, so many moving parts. So I think I'm going to keep the way things are. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to start building some more of these foundational spots of where I want to put building structures. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna build them out separately outside of the build, just on a platform, the building. And then when I figure out what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna replace the placeholders. That way, like I said, with this whole permanence that I just mentioned and it being hard to kind of move things around, if I build them up, then I'm comfortable with them, then when I drop them down, then I can kind of set them in place. So we're gonna do that for now. All right, you guys, I started getting into the process of building and I realized I should be showing you guys this, but sometimes when I'm doing it like this, where I take cuts, so I'm not showing you the thought process of me just thinking and figuring things out, I sometimes lose track of the fact that you guys should be seeing this. So this is where we're at so far. So this should be pretty easy for you guys to replicate. I end up having these things kind of hang out on the side because there's no way sometimes I can build evenly without having 1 by 1 bricks to kind of even things out. Unfortunately, I don't have those in these sets, and I wasn't gonna buy a pack of just 1 by 1 just to even things out. Now I do have curved bricks, but the only reason why I don't wanna do those, which I have these right here, and these have some curved bricks, these are masonaries, is because it just really feels like what will end up happening is I'll start implementing them in some things and then I'll run out. And when I originally bought these two, I kind of had those I bought them at the same time as I brought a lot of the first set of the bricks, but I planned on using those for other things actually. More like modern structures that have stones in them. So I didn't want to kind of use them up, and I like the idea of just using up all the cheaper, more affordable bricks for this build because that's the idea of it. So I end up being left with a couple of those things. So don't mind if you guys had to copy the same, trying to do these same builds, you guys might have the parts to not have to worry about that or do that. And so this right here that I put here, and I have a good amount of these plates like this in this bag here. It's not a ton, but it should be enough because I don't really use them for much. So I should be able to utilize them. And what I'm using that for here is to simulate the elevator, that little space there. I know I couldn't really come up with something that worked as good as I wanted it to. So that's just gonna be the quote unquote elevator, or at least representing that. So that's just what I'm gonna do on every spot. That little kind of, separate indentation will just be an empty spot that will never get used. Nothing's going to be put there, but it's supposed to simulate someone going to the elevator. And granted, it's a little small. It's really supposed to be like a 4 stud wide doorway. I just don't have the pieces to really do that. And I want it to feel like it's somewhat separate, which is why I put it indented. So maybe I'll find out a better way, but for now, that's just what I'm going with for now. So yes. Obviously a little bit of imagination might have to be used in this case versus my other build. But the main thing about it when it comes to this is I just really don't want to, do a stair method in this because I think it's going to be too taxing with the amount of space that I have. And like I said before, that the way that this, these structures in this type of more expensive, more higher scale, financially higher scale locations, they shouldn't have to rely on steps unless it's decorative. If I wanted to do steps for decorative, whereas my desert planet, it's a little different. You kind of would expect something a little more like that. So I think I'm going to try to also just go with the height of 5. Matter of fact, let's put him next to this, which is 5 height. And does that work? It does. So I think I'm just going to go with 5 height, 5 bricks high for the height, because there's a lot of building going to go on. And for every additional level that you increase is very taxing on your number of bricks. This I'm just going to put here on the side. This is over here. It's representing the ones that I'm going to end up that's weird. This is a different color plate than, is it? No, it's just the lighting. I'm sorry. It looked like it was a different color plate from where it was at. So this is just going to represent, this one right here is that platform there. Like I said before, I'm building it up separately. Then I'll replace it because it's easier for me to build it up when it's off the location. But those are placeholders. So I'm going to put this one next to here because that one I'm going to build up there. This I'm going to build a side thing like that. And we're gonna just kind of focus on these for right now on this side, and then we'll go to the other sides later. I'm definitely gonna build it up where there's a lot of structures in this. So it is gonna get very jam-packed, and that is gonna be a positive in terms of the way that it will feel, the vibe of it. Like I said before, and I still got it going back and forth in my head, some of the like concepts, like I said, expanding it. I'm not going to do that in terms of bringing it to the edge. It's going to be a lot of work, even though a part of my brain is like, you kind of want to do it. Sometimes you get into that creative space and you're like, you want to do it, but you also know like, you kind of don't want to do it. So got to try to just make that make sense. Make sense to my own head, and that I'm not, you know, like knocking myself over the head about it. Pull him out of there now. Let's see. This is the tedious part where things kind of get, you know, just very long in the tooth. But once again, I will do this so you guys can see this in case this is something that you guys, you know, want to do it my exact way. But if not, you know, you guys can kind of put it together however you guys will want to put it together. But at least it gives you guys a little bit of like a guide or a sense, you know, something of that sort in terms of what we're doing here. I think I'm gonna do that for structural integrity. Maybe. Let me see. No. I could just do it like this again. That way this section of the elevator doesn't look too strange. Like I said, it does start taking away from aspects of the buildings in terms of its smoothness, but you know, I guess it is what it is. This right here, part of me wanted this to be, this is 4 studs as far as interior space. I think for some reason I thought that this was going to have more working space in it, but it feels like it's kind of lacking in the amount of space that I have in it. And I'm like I said before, I think I want to turn it into like maybe, I don't know if this is going to be a shop. I'm not really too sure. Can he stand in a 4 brick high space? No, he cannot. So it's got to go up one more. Got to go up one more. Which already is consuming a lot of bricks because, like I said, just in the structures to rise everything up had consumed a lot of bricks. So this is very brick heavy in terms of brick usage. So because I really kind of wanted this one to have a double floor, and I wanted a few of them, not all of them, but a few of them to have double floors. At least I think 3 structures are going to probably have a double floor. So okay, and then now comes putting on a roof width, which I will probably just do similar to the way that I did the old structure before. I mean, with the other location, I did the 1x1 stud pieces if I have them, because I don't have, maybe I could do the 2. I could do the, I don't have the jumper type plate, so that's why I'm saying that. Okay, here they go. They're actually in this bag. I don't have the jumper type plates, so what I am able to do is take those. In this case, I'll just take 4. And then maybe for some of the other structures, I'll use the 1x2s, but I'll just use 4 of these 1x1 studs. Put it right here at the corners. You know, and this is one of those things where later on in the line, maybe I will, you know, obviously maybe buy gray ones of these, change them up. I wasn't able to kind of really do that now. Like I said, like didn't really have the money to the finances to kind of really do too much in this one moment. So it's like I just wanted to use some of the older pieces I have. I wasn't going to buy extra pieces just for color coding right now. Not something I had the luxury to really do at the moment. So I didn't want to do that. But here I go for that. And let's see. I don't know, like I said before, if I'm going to end up putting another space on this, sorry, I meant to say another roof on this. I don't know if I'm going to do that right now. The one thing that's interesting about doing that though, well, actually, I just realized something too. So in doing this, I realized something. I'm going to have to do this. I actually don't want to do it like that. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think what I want to do is take, let's see if I have these pieces here. So I think this will make this feature look a little better. To take this right here, and this right here, and then take this right here. Because I was going to close it up. But if I don't close it up, even though obviously it's supposed to represent an elevator being there, but if I don't close it up and leave it hollow, what happens is that I can have light pass through to that floor, which kinda is cool because once this is sitting on top of it, like this, you can kind of see that light will pass through. So I think that's a little bit cool. Yes, it's not representative of an elevator per se, but I could just use one of these 4 pieces here and just close it off. And then that would just be it, which I could do. But like I said, for right now, I don't know. I think I'm just gonna do it this way for now. There is a bit of a small problem, which is that if that is the elevator, I'm realizing this now, when it comes to lifting this portion up, that part they can't be connected. So what I can do is I gotta find my 1x1 studs, which I don't want to use them all up. I don't even know how many I have of them left, so I'm gonna probably have to use, I don't even have that many of the 1x1 studs. This is where the problems start to kind of come into place because you start running out on certain pieces. And so I think I may have to abandon that whole thing that I just did there. I'm gonna probably have to abandon that there. One of the other things too that I'm realizing is that, so I need, matter of fact, this is the part I wanted to tell you guys that I didn't want you guys expand the video so much. So I'm gonna stop this, figure out what I'm gonna do, and then I'm gonna come back and we're gonna just kind of continue from there. I'm gonna let you guys know what I decided to do. Okay, so what I ended up deciding to do was, I didn't end up building up like that. What I ended up doing is just, I took another 2x4, I put it on here, and now I made it a part of this. So that way, when this comes down, this is not attached to anything, because what I realized is that I can't build up on this, on the elevator part, because the problem is if it's attached to the roof, when I pull the roof off or the second floor, it's gonna cause a problem. So now, when it goes down, it's gonna look like that. And I gave it a space so that way it doesn't lock into it. So yes, it's gonna feel like a slight bit eyesore, but I did that just so it doesn't, like I said, lock into it, because what will end up happening is I would end up pulling this up and then it's gonna be attached to that, and I might have part of those bricks come up, and I don't want that to happen. So right now, this is the solution for right now. It's not the best option, maybe, but it should, to some degree, do what it is that we needed to do when we got to pull up the second floor and not have to worry about that, because that will end up being a big issue down the line. And I left that as a hole there. Now, I didn't want to do holes like I did in the previous mock with the sand planet, but this, I just left one hole there because this is going to be like a little, this is going to probably be like a little market store maybe. And then, so I just wanted to just have that like a little peeking hole that he can look out, or whatever the case is. I probably will make it a little shop down there. Maybe the top floor will be the vendor's bedroom. So maybe I'll do like that, like his apartment is up above and this is his little store front or whatever it is. And I could put some things along the inside, like a little shelf. I can do, just to save space, what I can do is I can build up a 1 stud wide, 1 stud deep shelf. Take like a beam, put it with, you know, some like the 1x2s as like the legs of the, you know, table or whatever, and then just make it across and then put like items on it. Then he can have a little chair inside there. So, you know, nothing too crazy, but maybe like along the sides with little items. And then obviously you guys seen when I had finished the build of that, of the Space Desert mock, I ended up just grabbing some extra pieces here. I ended up adding some things to it just to decorate it with some of the extra pieces I had. I don't want to start with that because I want you guys, if you guys want to mimic this kind of build, to just see that you could do it with basic parts or using the parts that I bought. Because if you guys, excuse me, hiccups, if you guys want to do the same thing, you can do it with something that is a little bit more, you know, like I said, affordable start like this. Because like I said, these bricks compared to Lego don't cost that much, these third-party bricks. So I don't want to build anything initially on the build outside of the scope of that you guys would be able to buy the same setup and afford it and build it up. I don't like using unique stuff to at least get the general basis of the build. Like I said, so you guys can mimic the same thing. That way it's more cost efficient. And then later on, you can grab whatever spare parts you have and add it accordingly. But at least you would know that that the bulk of it you were able to do without some crazy unique pieces that, you know, you'd have to order from Lego directly or something of that sort. What's interesting too is starting to make a nice pattern on it where it's it doesn't look too crazy that these are different color bricks, so that's not too bad. The first floor obviously is a little tougher because you got to have openings, whereas on this there's no opening, so it's just a solid piece. So that makes it a little, you know, a different vibe to it. But like I said before, it's got to be at least 5 studs high for it to, for a person to stand. And maybe down the line, you know, if I get more creative pieces, I can build windows. For right now, I don't have anything like that, and I'm not going to try to do that with this here. So that will be what it is. We're just going to finish off this area of the build. It's interesting. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Why is that bottom one doesn't have a brick like that? That's interesting. Just trying to see how I switch things up from the other ones. The other patterns down below, they look a little different. But nonetheless, we are good here in terms of the build. We have finished this. So now we just got to throw a roof on top of this. And I don't even know if I have, well, I was gonna say if I have another one, but obviously the one that was the placeholder can be my roof for that. It would be nice also too to have, to be honest with you, like maybe a little like something on top where I could see through it, like a little skylight or something like that, but I don't know. I have to go completely over it. And maybe I'll do that just so I'm not using up all that, like as far as that base, because I do not want to use, I'm running low on those. So just to kind of save some parts, I will get some, let's see what I'm gonna do this with. I'll use 1x2s. In this scenario here, I use the 3x1s over there just so I'm not, it's just so I'm trying to like spread out the part usage. Now a whole set of these, which you guys can look at that review video that I did as far as how many come inside the pack, all these different types and sizes and whatnot. But there is a gray one that is offered, a dark gray one. It is about $17. So I could not, with all the other stuff I spent with this and this and that and all these other things I spent at the time, I just didn't want to buy a whole set of gray just to do things like this and little areas where I might use whatever, because I'm not using that many of these on this. But you could opt for that if you want the gray ones of the same company, because this company, like I said, works. The color is not really that tan that you would normally see on Lego, but as far as the wait a minute, if I'm using this, then I have to get one more set of those. Sorry, in the middle of my thought. This is a good brand, like these ones are good bricks. They're compatible. The color is off, but the gray one should match, so that shouldn't be a problem. But as far as the quality of them, they're good. So that is something that you could rest assured is the case. Let me see where these land. I just want to make sure that they kind of fall where they should. So this one, not completely, but it's still okay. Why is that not lining up correctly? What am I doing wrong here? Okay, and then this one there. I do have an empty piece right there, but that's fine. And then that is the roof for that. And then so this would stack up right here. And that is our building right now. Like I said, nothing over the top fancy, but it works. I do have too many studs on here that make it a little bit tough. They do hold retention, which is not good, but I don't want to use up all the 1x2s I have, because then I'm going to run out. I am going to run out, so I'm trying not to use all of them. I do have a little bit of the 1x1s also, which I could use too, but I might use those on a smaller place like this for the roof, because that's going to be a lot smaller, so you have less connecting points. So you need to use less connecting points. But so I'm going to go with this for now. It's just an empty space for the doorway for now. Our elevator, which will go up to the top. I should seal it off on the top of it, so I will do that. Matter of fact, if I'm going to seal that off, is there something else I could seal it off with that's better than that? Let me see. No, I almost wanted to use one of these. The problem with that is it's gonna then connect with this piece over here a little bit, which is not a big deal, but it's not great either. To go like that. I think I'll go with that, just because just for part usage, I'm not going to use a lot of these, so I might as well try to use them up. So I will do that. And now this is the point in which there's no connection, but I think I'm fine with that, because there's just a roof. You're just pulling it off. So there we go. I don't know if down the line I'll do some decorative parts that go along with that. And then this too, I built those here because these are going to connect with the road area. Now, let's see, there's going to be three studs in between there. The question is, how do I want it built up? Do I want to just use, this is what I had it on as a placeholder. And I think I will just go with that because, but I don't know, because this might make it a little wobbly. Well, let's see. We went 3 over, should be right here. Because I don't want to use too much more of the, I used mostly the 1x4 gray 1x4 bricks for doing the elevation. So I kind of don't want to use any more of them up because I'm going to need them for the primary of building the structure. So here you go. You guys see that here. Let me just move some of these things over to the side a little bit. This, I'll put that over there for now. Just trying to clear things out the way. And so there you see it. That is our structure. Like I said, it's not perfect, but it gets the job done for the most part. And those support beams that are the elevation beams, they are all right because this is giving it connection to that, to the main walkway. So it gives it some level of stability that it's being pulled more that way. So even though there's no support dripping down on the last 2 studs of it, you know, it shouldn't be too big of a problem. You can see it in the background there. And like I said, we're gonna end up filling up all around the edges. So this is gonna, if assuming we got the bricks for that, but not everything is gonna be 2 stories high. That one's gonna be 2 stories high. Maybe what I'll do with that is not be a bedroom up top, but maybe it'll be like the secret, the really secret stuff for that merchant, like the black market stuff. And that could be like either a black market area or even like a place where like rebels will go and they'll hide out and, you know, they have their secret meetings. So that could be that space where they'll go to the vendor in this place and mention the code word and he'll say, take the elevator upstairs, you know. So what I'm going to do now is build a small little vending thing here. That's not going to be too crazy. It's going to probably just have like a little stand. It's not going to be over the top. So, yeah. I'm going to probably have an open front, a little stand. So I'm not going to go too crazy with it. One thing is this right here. It's going to need a little bit more support, but after doing what I did now, I realize I'm going to end up having to, I don't even know where I had this. Oh yeah, it was 3 away from there. 3 studs? There were 3 studs in between. So I think it would have been like right here. Yeah. So, okay. So, matter of fact, let me just leave that placeholder there because I can do that for now. And I'm going to take this and we're going to build that up really quickly. So first and foremost, what we start with is we make sure that the prongs are going to come over onto the platform. So that's always a thing. So, but let me see something because I may not end up, this has 3 spaces in between. I'm going to have to probably end up making that 4 spaces in between because then that way the railing part is not in the way. And this walk path now is going to look very small now that I'm realizing that it's not going to have, that it's only going to be, once I put these walls up, it really makes the walkway look a lot smaller. But it is what it is. It is what we're dealing with here. Even if I was to expand these out more to the edges and you'd have more in between space from the main center area, it still wouldn't have wider walkways unless I doubled them up. And that is just too much. Like I would have to literally make that the walkway, which visually could look nice if you guys want to play around with that idea too. But now you need double the bricks. Well, you probably could take the 4 1x4s and bring them across for support. So that way they're supporting both ones. But nonetheless, it would definitely end up being, yes, great. And it'd be wider, but these structures now would have to definitely get built on top of these parts of the road all the way through. You know, it wouldn't be just on certain parts where I'm going to do it on certain parts. You'd have to do it all the way if you expanded that. So it's something to think about. But like I said, the part of this whole thing is trying to build it all in this space. So even though I could have done things a little bit differently, for the most part, you know, I think that I will be fine with the way that it comes out. So pretty cool with that. So we'll do here, start building up the vendor's place. This is already, I'm seeing a problem already a little bit, and that is that these this square, I want to make sure that everything can be evened off completely. I don't even like my brick supply already, to be honest with you. I'm not feeling my brick supply at this moment. So it's not nearly empty, but I'm gonna probably be building at least about 4. This is 1 I'm building right now. So I wanted to build 1 over here. That's 1, but you can count it 2 because it's gonna be 2 plates. So 1, 2. A huge thing over here that's going to be at least 3, and this one's going to be massive. The thing that's going to be over here is going to be massive, and it's going to come over this. It's going to be huge. So 1, 2, 3, we got like at least about 4 more structures, not including the one I'm building. So yeah, and that's now also not including if I do like maybe a little small vendor on the side somewhere, which I could do just by adding one of these where it's just like on the side, and you know, maybe it's just a, I don't know, a little pocket vendor or something like that. So we'll see. Just to take up some space. So I'll see what I end up doing with that. I really don't want that to have pillars coming down though, because then that becomes a waste of our bricks. So okay, so we got this here. We are going to come over the edges with that. And honestly, I probably should really build this one up with more of these. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna build this one up with more of the 2x2 bricks, because the 4x2 bricks, I'm really using a lot of those up, and I don't like that I'm using so many of those up. So that's a bit of a problem. So I will try not to go too crazy with it if I can avoid it. Let's see. And like I said, this is just going to be a little vendor on the side here. Nothing too crazy. Use a couple of these just to give it some a little bit of that structure and structural integrity. But then I realized something too, and that is being that it's got to be 5 studs high, I should use those last ones to kind of more solidify it on the way up. This is a good spot for the, no, I could still just do, yeah, I'll do the gray. Put those right there, that's fine. And then we'll just now come across with these to kind of really just lock things down on the top end. And this is not the way I want it to be, but that's fine. That should be fine. And then now we just got to add our roof. So we could take this same piece here. But one thing I want to do while I'm here, because these are using, like I said, the basic parts, nothing over the top, I am going to make a little, I'm going to have a little stand. Now I could always do, I think I'll do that. I was almost going to just build a 2x2 little stand that blocks it. But when you have a vendor shop, you could just jump over your table when you're coming to the shop. You don't need a doorway. So I could block the whole thing off if I wanted and just have it like that. So I think I'm going to do that. Let me find a 2x4 and then a 2x3 I happen to have available. And what we're going to do is I'm going to take the 4x piece here. I know I didn't want to use a bunch of these up, but it's going to be a lot easier for what I'm about to do. I'm going to take this one here and I will take a 1x2. And I'm going to put that in there like that. I'm going to show you guys. That's how it's looking right there right now. Take this one to put it over at the edge. And then this may not work because he may not have arm space. So let's see how he fits in this and see how this works, because this might end up being a problem, but I don't know. Yeah, there is a small bit of a problem here with space and him fitting in there. I wanted to make a cross section and that's not going to work the way I need it to. But what I can do is this. instead of doing it like that, I will do a three-piece one. So we have a slender one, but then I don't need that over there. So what I'll do is I'll take that one out. I'm gonna take, this got to come out first. Then I could take that one out. And then we'll go with this one here. I'm gonna take the 2-piece one, put that over here. That's gonna be the foundation for our tables. I mean, not our tables, our counter. Now this one's gonna have a floating piece a little bit because I'm only gonna put it on 2 of those studs, but that should be fine. Like that. It's floating on the back, but that's fine. And this one is gonna go across. That way he has more standing room for his arms, because the way I was gonna box it in, he was only gonna have a 3x2 space, but that's not enough for his arms. So here, he can be, let's say if I put him like, say, right here, as the little vending shop, I can now put items here and along the side there if I need to, if they're not too tall. You know, just little pieces of junk that I might have laying around. And that is that. And then as far as this holding its place, we'll just take some of these 2-stud ones here, put them like that, and then we'll just topple that off on top. And there goes our little stand. Nothing crazy, but it works. And even when these pieces come off with it, it's fine because you put the roof right back down in the same spot, so it does its job. So that's fine. And now we are going to just have to build up the pillars on it. And like I said before, I'm gonna just use these from now on for some of the pillars rather than the gray, the darker gray 1x4s, because I'm trying not to use all of them up. Move some of these pieces over because I've got a few of these little platforms here. I try to kind of keep them all same shaping together in piles. Makes it a little easier down the line. If I do attach like a small vendor, I might have to use that size space just on the side, but I might end up doing that. We'll see what I end up doing. I do want to make a little corner shop like here, but like I said before, this might end up being a little barren, so I might have to do something here. Maybe what I'll do is I can branch this out on the edge and make a little bench, and then that way it's like another seating area along the way, so that may not be a bad idea either. So I think I'm gonna probably end up doing something like that. So what we're gonna do here is just stack for our pillar, our support beams on the bottom. And I'm not gonna go wild with it because it doesn't need to be on all 4 corners. In this case, we need one. We're gonna do one that supports the front, and then the back is what we're gonna go with here, because I don't want too much leaning forward. Though this leans forward, but this thing, we may only need the one because these are gonna approach here, and we've got, these are structured pillars here. So we might be able to get away with just the one now that I think about it. First, I wanna show I'd be able to do that. But the way it's built up, I think we could do that. Oh, but this has to go in. It can't be on the edge because the whole structure is now hanging off of the edge like the one next to it. And there we go, our little stand. Now, like I said, the one negative in this situation here is the fact that our walkway is not very deep, unfortunately, but I can't in good faith you know, not have railings, not have the little sidewalls. Because if you don't, it's just going to look crazy. That, like I said, this is, you're using your imagination. The idea is this is thousands of feet high up into the air, so you don't want them to fall from there. So that's just what it is. It is a little compressed, but it's what I'm working with here. So it is what it is. We got our vendor over there. We've got the other, I know the tree is a little bit inside the way, so sorry about that, you guys. you know, that is the little monument thing, but later on we're all done, we'll get a better view of everything. But so we have that. Which I think is fine so far. So the next thing we're gonna do is I was gonna make this along the side here. So, first question is, where is the door? And a part of me wanted the door to be over here, but I realized that if there's a walls connecting here, and then we also have a piece connecting here, that makes the doorway kind of not work that well. So I can make it a 3-stud doorway instead, but I don't like the idea of that, where it's like this, and then the other one would stop like that. But I don't like the idea of that, because then 3 studs for a doorway, it could work. But if I later on want to actually put a door in that space, I won't be able to. I'll have to break the entire thing down. So I don't think I'm going to go with that direction. So maybe I will put the door over here, and you'll be able to walk into the rest of it over there. So I think that's what I'm going to do. So that is what we'll do. So that means the first thing you start with is connecting it by the doorway. We take those first initial prongs, if you will, or extensions to go into. These are going to hang over like that, how the other ones have been. Now, the only thing also, that means that this is going to be a full wall on that side. But what's actually nice about that is it means, and I'll make sure to start with a strong connection going across here. What that means is that this section here, where this wall over here, won't need, let's see how deep that goes. Yes, it won't end up needing an additional walkway wall. So this will come here, and all that will be empty, extra empty space, which is kind of cool. Yeah, I would say I could put a little chair out there, but I don't think I'll do that. Just let that extra space be there for extra space for right now. And let's see. Trying to figure out. I'm going to come around with this whole thing with that. Now, a part of me would say it would be a good idea to make that connect over there as an extra structural part to the side of here, but I don't want to do that because it's a wall there, so I feel like it doesn't look as right to do that when you have just a wall there to connect onto that. So I'm not gonna do that. Now, I'm not gonna do that. We'll just have the support on. What we'll just do is put the support on. It really would be good to do that, to be honest with you. It really would. It really would be good to do that, but I almost just feel like it's gonna take away from everything going on here, right here. But it actually would be good to do that, that it's able to hold on to that, because it will help structurally. I won't need to then put, this is where that becomes a benefit. If I do that, I don't need to make another structure pillar over here, because I'll have this structure pillar, it'll be one coming down this way, but then this, by holding on to this piece, that pillar becomes the structure for it. So Unfortunately, even though I don't know if I like the look of that as much, I don't think I have much of a choice, to be honest with you, because it ends up being where I save bricks by doing that. Because now this is putting the weight of this whole thing, and these are going to be solid walls. So that means these things are not going to fall out of place. That puts their weight there. And then let me just stamp it down just to kind of see. Yep. And then it gives me that. So in the grand scheme of things, it works better. So I will do it like that, even though I like the idea of that just being an open little kind of extra space there. It doesn't, it's not going to benefit on that same level for it to not be that way. So that's in itself going to be a thing. This really sucks because I don't want to do that. I really don't want those being there. And it's also messing up, I think, the alignment of this now to some degree, a little bit it is. So, don't know exactly how I feel about that right now. These actually shouldn't be these pieces too. These should just be these. Well, no, this one can be that. This one shouldn't be that. I'll use that as a tiny window. I guess I'm doing those little window things in certain parts. So I think I'm going to just stick with that there for that purpose there. And the rest of it will just continue off the way it originally was, I guess. Not really the way I wanted things to be necessarily, but yeah. This is really messing up some of the way that these bricks are aligning, and that's kind of causing a little bit of a problem. It's not the biggest of deals, but it is causing a bit of a problem. It is causing a bit of a problem when it comes to that, because it but I feel like I'm almost going to need that. I'm not really too sure. I do feel like it's throwing things off with the way that these are all connecting, but I don't have these things coming into that. What's going to happen is it's really kind of like it's hitting me right now, because it is messing up the structure of things a little bit, and I am trying to figure out a way around it, and it's not showing itself the way I want it to. Then I might end up needing more support over there. I think I'm just going to do it the way that I originally had said. And see how this works out. Because also too, when I started overlaying the other bricks on top, what started happening is how you get that kind of support where you kind of crisscross over the lined sections. That wasn't happening. And so it was creating a dynamic that I actually didn't really like. And that to me was a problem because structural integrity is super important. See, now this lines up better with the way that they're lining, crisscrossing with the bricks, giving it more like cross-section overlap over the where the cuts are. You guys know what I'm trying to say. Ends up making it where it's a lot more sturdy, which is important as I build upward. So that may have been a crucial mistake that I just made, but we'll see and hope that it's not. I'm trying to mix things up a little bit and not just use all of the dark gray because I am really running low. Now this is not going to be a 2-floor place because it is bigger, but yeah, and I don't even know where in my mind what this is going to be right here. And it's funny because when I had the concept of this whole thing, I did say I wanted one place. It probably will be the place that's gonna be over here. There'd be a huge kind of space, like this huge room. That platform, which I never thought about putting there before, the landing platform, you know, definitely takes up a lot of my plates in terms of my bigger plates. But that is actually very important, having that, because I didn't even think about it at the time. And then now when I think about it, it just makes sense. Like you can't not have, I gotta do it like that, unfortunately. But you can't not have a landing pad in this thing. So it's funny because whenever I thought about that general mock a long time ago, many months ago, but I was thinking of it from perspective of that Lego themselves could make that for if they like revive their space line. And when I had that thought, you know, it never really occurred to me about a landing port. But now I realize, yes, of course, like this place is super high off the ground. Like you need a landing port. That's just a must. That goes without saying. So these things are not balancing off the way I want them to, because I got to do that little thing again, which I don't like always doing that, but I have to, where I make the edge come off like that. It's just the only, without one by one bricks, you just really can't do that. Well, you could if you didn't have a doorway. And I'm realizing now, oh my God, I'm realizing now that I messed up in my doorway, which is supposed to be 4 studs wide, is not, it's 2 studs. So, I mean, I'm sorry, 3 studs. So that in itself is a problem. And let's see if I can fix this without it being a big mess. Not what I wanted to do. To be honest, this is not how I wanted it to be. Okay, I think I was able to get things reset to some degree. No, that's not going the way I want it to right now. Let's try to make it make sense, because this is not working for us right now. And now I got one of those little holes in it that I didn't want to have. Okay, I'm gonna stop this here so I kind of figure this out while I put it together. Essentially, you're just gonna see me run around this whole thing with Briks. So that would be something that is, you know, I'm not gonna hold you guys on until we get to the next section. It's mostly built. All right, you guys, so I just went along the edges like I did. I did one little hole inside there, but other than that, obviously these come out so that way I can, you know, I don't have the 1x2 as I mentioned before. And I use these just as what I'm gonna put the roof on. That's it. So you can see here, the way it is, an L-shaped space. 4 by the wall, the interior is, you know, 4 spaces wide from here and from here. I always feel like it's not really enough, you know, especially like if you want to do something like lay a bed down, you got to kind of like off center it or whatever the case is. So I got to figure out what I'll do when it comes to that. If I want to do something like that, like put a bed somewhere or something like that. But nonetheless, yeah, I don't know what I feel like putting in this. I could put maybe a table in the back area there if I wanted, you know, do it like this and throw a table back here. Not really too sure. I'm not gonna plop it down there hard, but I could do something like that. It's not a lot of room, actually. It really isn't. So it's cool, but it's not really a lot of room. Like I said, most of the places here are going to be mostly like vendors and stuff like that. So like it could be something like that. I could make like maybe a long shelf going along that way. So I could do it like that. And even though I got some longer ones, I like just taking sometimes a lot of the 2x4s because I know I'm not going to use them that much, so it's a little easier. Sometimes I use them as benches, but still. And then so I could, if I want, take 2 of them, drop them across here. Let me see if that should line up correctly, which I think it should without a problem. Let me put this one over here first because it's easier. I can reach in there easier like that. So do that. And then do this. So even if that's just for the purpose of a shelf or whatever I want to use it for, it's that. So there's that. And then if I wanted to too, I could end up putting an additional higher shelf of just 1 stud deep. But I don't think I want to do that because there's not enough finger room to even get your fingers in there anyway. But that's just for something in there for now. I really don't really know. I really do wish I had more space for this, but the thing about it is once we, you know, put this where it's gonna go, it's just not gonna be a lot of space. Now, you know, what would kind of be kind of cool is like if I could turn this thing into a bar, but there's definitely, I don't think I can get away with that. I can make it a standing bar, but like who wants a standing bar? Like if that was like that and then a person could stand right here and it could be a standing bar, but I don't know about that, to be honest. I don't know about that. But what I could do is this, and it's going to be so hard to try to take things out of there once you put things down because, you know, the angles make it a little tough. But what I can do, if I put that sideways, like how I just originally had it, and of course I can't really get this in there now to take that apart in that way. So that's gonna definitely be a thing when it comes to getting these things out. There we go, it all fell apart anyway, so that worked. What I can do is take this here, put this like this. Now take this one and put this sideways like that. And there isn't really much of a kitchen spot, but I could do that and then put someone back here as the vendor. And then people walk into the shop, and I could have it where like maybe there's stuff all along the side here. So that's not too bad. The only problem is if I wanted to actually make it as like a bar-ish kind of setting, which is not enough room for that, but just say like a place you come in, you grab something that's food or something like that, but it's more of a standing thing. I could do a bench over here. I could even do like a beam, so a one stud deep beam. That way it's not taking up too much room for like just a little table thing. I could move this one over here. Like maybe like that. I would move that one back there. And then they would come and he'll service them whatever, drinks or whatever. And now he's got room if he needed to, like if I needed to make it like there's a kitchen there or some kind of thing, drinks, and he'd be all back here, and I could put this table, move it back a little bit there. I could do that. So I'm not really too sure where my mind's at with it. So what I'll do for now is I'll take these, and I won't have them down solid, but I'll just have them in that area. And I'll leave them in the building, but not press them down. So that way, depending on where my mind's at, I could kind of play around with that. But you could see here a little bit, get an idea of that. So that way it'd be like he's got his little, if I want to make it like a kitchen area, he would have that. And then this would be like the serving booth when they come up to it, like the front counter. So I don't know. That could even be as a vendor. I could do that too. Keep precious things over there, and they come to, you know, buy his stuff, but you got to walk into it. I got to see, because it's a lot of space, and it's a little bit of space at the same time. And I don't want it to feel like I'm not utilizing the space properly, and it's just some kind of, you know, it's a lot of space in terms of it took me a lot of bricks, and it's a bigger space than some of these other things, but it's a little bit of space and there's not a lot I can do with it. I am going to leave those in there for now until I figure out what I want to do. So now the only part that I got to do now is figure out where I'm going to put these, the platform pieces. And so this right here, similar to those other ones, are hovering off. So it's going to have to, and let's see, I want to see if I can get away with just utilizing 2 pillars. And I think that I can. I think I could do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because I'm trying to conserve now at this point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, just need the 5. I'm trying to conserve now. And the 1x4 ones were important because these things are joined where there's the crack. These buildings don't need that because they're on solid platforms that are, the stress is spread out evenly throughout. And of course I knocked my whole little thing outside of there, but just throw that back in there. So let's build this up. And then after this segment here, I'm going to take a break and go relax for a bit. Obviously, you guys are going to see all this in like a seamless part, but it was me spreading it out throughout. So let's make sure, let's see where this piece is. This is going to come like that. So this is going to have to be, I want to say that this is, well, what I can do is if I take a piece similar to it, which should be this size right here, what I could do is if I line this up, this will be 1 stud in, And on this side, how many studs in is it from the one stud in? Okay, so that gives me my measurements. So now I can just, and the tables fall out. One stud in on that side. And then on this side, the same thing, one stud in. And let's hope that that gives me the support needed. We're gonna look above to make sure everything lines up correctly. That side is, this side isn't. This side has to go in one more stud. Okay. Come up from above again just to get a bird's eye view, see where we're clamping down on this. Now, the only thing that I'm going to say that I'm starting to see is a bit of an issue. Wait a minute. Why is that not? You know what? I'm just going to put that beam down and then I'm going to press on it because it's not aligning where I want it. Okay, there we go. Okay, so those support beams are working and this is pushing down the front. Now I'm seeing the only issue right now that I'm starting to see, and I hope this actually, I should be able to mitigate this once I start putting those walls along the edges, and that is the weight here. Let's bring the camera angle up a little bit. The weight here of this was kind of pulling this platform a little more that way, but not by much, but you can see it there. So now there it goes. Yes, we got the big tree in the way, so I'm sorry about that, you guys. But you can see it over there. So now it's starting to come together. Our little, you know, Coruscant-like city. I'm gonna have to come up with a generic name because I'm not gonna call it that in sort of the title of the video. But yes, so it's starting to come together. I would want maybe an additional building somewhere around here, but what I'm gonna do is I am going to build this building here first, so I make sure I got enough pieces for it, because what I'm gonna end up doing here is I'm gonna actually make this thing really big, and it's gonna probably almost come a little bit over on top of the tree. But I want it to be big and grandiose. Now, before I was gonna have a lower section of it. I don't think I want to do that. I'm gonna make that first floor just like an elevator, similar to that side. I'm gonna do something where it's just an elevator kind of thing to bring you up. And however I'm gonna do that, how I'm gonna make that look, maybe I'll have to build an elevator in the middle of this to simulate, okay, there's an elevator. I don't know, or how I'm gonna do that, where I'm gonna put the elevator, I don't know. Maybe I'll put it on the side somewhere. I don't know. But I really want to make this a big thing. And I'm feeling like I'm probably going to have to come really high with it because, and I hate that I'm going to end up blocking some of the plant. I really do. I really do hate that, especially now that I'm looking at it too. I probably should have built this on that side and those should have gone on this side. Maybe. I'm not too sure, but maybe that should have been the case. And it's not. I can still change that because these are all modulars. I could just pull them right up. But at the same time, too, I mean, the way I built that building, this one can't really do that well because the way the brick layout is in the doorway, and this is why I said, too, about these whole elevation things, the way it is, and that piece is coming off the edge over there, I can't really do that. But I could say move this one over here. You got this little pathway here, so I don't want to interfere with that. So I don't know, I'd have to see. The main issue with this here, what I was gonna say is that because I originally moved, did I move more of this platform this way? I did. I moved more of the platform going this way. And part of that, yeah, no, it's still better for it to be on this side because this is not going to have a ground level. So it is better to be on this side. But the thing about it is I want it to be really huge. I want it to be huge. I want it to be this thing where this is going to probably be one of those kind of important towers where a lot of things are going on. not vendors, but like a political kind of space. So, and the problem also is if I do that, I want it to be massive. I want to have this massive interior. I don't want it to cover up the plant too much. So I might have to make it come over like this, hover back this way a little bit, which is fine because I got a little bit of room for support, and I'm going to support on the wall here too. And I may have to do that. I don't want to build another one of those structures I built on the platform where it's coming so far out that it needs that stability. So I'm hoping that I won't have to do that. I should have enough room to come out like this. I really want it to be, it's got to be tall, and it's going to have to really be this big thing. So that's the space that I'm aiming for. But I don't really like it. But I mean, I could do something like this. Build the pillars up right under here, come up from here and a little bit here, and then just take that zone up for for that place. I could do that, and that actually gives me a lot more room, but it really is covering up the view of things, but I don't know. So I'm going to play around with this and I'll get back to you guys. But yes, I want this to be some kind of structure where, let me just kind of paint the image a little bit, because I may even actually want it bigger than this. I don't know. I want it to be, this might be a decent size, but you know, I'm not 100% sure, because let me just connect a couple pieces to kind of create that image of what I'm thinking of here in general. I want something that is, this is like going to be this massive building. Obviously not something like a political building, so not a Jedi temple, but very much this kind of huge, the kind of the place where people are like, you know, they look at that and they know what it is right away. And then also keep in mind, these same people from this political area, this is all high end. This is all money. So the people who come from here are going to be the ones who walk around and they're doing their, you know, political games when they sit inside the park area and they start talking and doing their thing. And this is supposed to be, like I said, from that view, it sucks because this is not spread out enough where we visually get a good view. But that's kind of why now I'm actually happy to have that platform, because that platform is going to be the clear view to see everything. But I'm thinking something that's huge. So like, I may have to make it really tall so that way it doesn't also interfere with the tree, but I kind of really didn't want it to be, I don't know. It can't be like that because you're not going to be able to see nothing down here. And it's got to be room for us to walk the people down below. Let me come from this angle from here. So you want, sorry about that. You guys can't even see from there. But so something like here, and it's got to be high enough so now we can see the people walking below it. And it's just got to be grand. So I might have to put it at this edge so that way it's not taking up too much of that space. It might end up having to be over the edge over there, which I like the idea of it being centralized. But if I just did one spot like this, which size wise, I like the look of that in terms of it, you know, having a structure beam coming up here, one coming up from the wall and doing that. That feels nice. But what I want to build in here is too grand to just be on one small platform, even though that one base plate, that one plate looks, it will feel nice for the purpose of making it simple. But in terms of what I want inside here, once you include walls, it's just not enough room. I want something that's grandiose. I mean, I could kind of do a little something with this, but no, I want it to be this huge room that's like you got all these political figures walking around it. I want it to feel, even in the scope, that it's not, you know, obviously what I'm working with. So it's not going to feel like, oh, it's super big, super big in the scope. I want it to feel like it's something to kind of where you've got these tables where the political figures will be, or, you know, kind of this, that's kind of where I'm going with. So we'll just go with that. Political figures will be sitting down, but then also too, where it's got enough room. Let me attach this back. Enough room where, say, if political figures are here, then you have this common area, maybe people are just walking around, and maybe this is where the elevator is, closer to this end, and it's just all this kind of walking around to kind of give that vibe of just big open space where people are walking around. And to do that, I need at least somewhere around the minimum of this type of space. So that is where it definitely becomes a bit of a thing. I think I want to do also like a skylight kind of thing, similar to the way I did in my Space City, where my desert planet, where the market area, if you remember in that video, excuse me, the market area had like these almost like a gazebo type of thing going across the top, which allowed a lot of visual light to come in. I think I'll probably do something similar to that if I can, because I definitely want to have that feel of like lights going in there. So, so yes, so I gotta see. So I will be back, you guys, in a bit with what I'm gonna do. I won't start the build, but I'll at least let you know where I'm going with it. I'll at least have my mind settled on where I'm going with it. All right, so I'm back with a little bit more of what I decided. And I wanted to do this before I ended up taking that break I was gonna take, because yeah, I didn't wanna, what I'm gonna probably end up having to do is put a lot of this stuff away for a bit, because I have some things going on. And then, so I wanted to get this out before I end up putting these away. So I end up building this up real quick. I don't have to go too in detail with it because it's very simple. It's just, you know, a plate like this. Once again, I make it hang over the edge so it grips onto the side. I just did some little base right there. And all this is really is a food vendor on the side. I don't know what I'm gonna do to set it up, what I'm gonna do with that right now, but you can see, well, you can't see, but there's a better view. So, you know, pretty much the little vendor over there, like I said, a guy's gonna be able to sit back there and serve up whatever people come for, like more of like a fast food kind of like, you know, luxury food. I realized too now what I was calling this place in my other video of my mock of what Lego could do, Capital City. So I'm gonna call that this from now on, rather than keep calling it Coruscant. We're gonna call it the Capital City or Capital City Planet. So that is like just a small vendor. I do still want to put somewhere a spot for a bench. And I did something that looked nice before in my other mock, which is kind of similar to this. It was like a preview of what I'm gonna have that attached in the link down below, but like of what I said Lego could build when I was coming up with that concept. And in that video is when I said Capital City. So I'm gonna carry that over to here. And but that was more in place of the centerpiece. So since I have a centerpiece here, I'm gonna put that somewhere on the side. Some as simple as like this, and then you just have like a little bench where someone could sit down and just offer the beaten path from this. The only issue is this whole area here. I decided I'm gonna do my platform. I mean, the embassy, that's what I'm gonna call it. The embassy is gonna go here, that political building. I'm gonna end up having to put it here. And what I'm gonna do as far as how someone's gonna get up, I'm gonna take a small section, maybe about the size of this. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use this to start the elevator. So the way that would look, and I'm just gonna use this just to attach just for the purpose of demonstrating. But I would attach it with different pieces than that. And this right here is a little bit reinforced. So this would be elevated like this. And this right here will be an entranceway. And then it's gonna have the walls built up along the side of it. And then when that entranceway hits the level of this side will be sealed off and this side will be open. And so the person will be able to look like they walk in this way. Now, when I remove this, if like it's gonna, you don't need to remove it, but if you want to remove it just to kind of see the open area down below, because it's just gonna have the pillars holding it up, you'll see this floating on its own, the elevator, as a separate build, just in case if you know you need to detach this. That's gonna be its own build, separate, floating with pillars underneath it. But that's what it's gonna be, the elevator on the side of the building. So that way it doesn't interfere with the structure and taking up any extra space. It allows me to have the structure a little bit more over this side. So yeah, I'm gonna move this a little over though, so it's not right there, but nonetheless, that is what it will be. And then so they'll come up, and then this is gonna be, like I said, I'm gonna really decorate it in a way where, you know, you got tables and whatnot, and it's gonna be pretty fancy. Now, just as a mock, I'm gonna probably just use my generic tables like I do with these, you know, things here. But later on, when I come back to change it after the build is done, I am gonna go with, you know, some more like fancier things I have for tables and stuff like that, and chairs and all those other kind of things, because this is definitely going to be fancy. This is going to be the embassy, and this is our capital city, or capital city planet is what it's going to be known as. So yes. So I just want to throw that in there, guys, before I end up taking my break. Because like I said, I'm going to end up having to clean a lot of these things up during my break. It just is what it is. Let me push that down a little bit, make sure everything is solid here with those. I might end up needing more support on that with some of the edges, but we'll see. Yeah. All right, you guys. So that's it for now. And when I come back, we will get into putting these things together. All right. So I started on the elevator piece here, so you can see that. Very simple. So you guys are able to mimic that. I didn't even do a lot of cross section either, because it was just easier just for me to build up like this, because I didn't want any kind of, distorted pieces coming out from the side like how I have here and stuff like that. I just wanted to be very clean, so it doesn't have the same level of cross section stability, but then I'll come over it with a few of the gray bricks to kind of give it some level of stability. This is going to hook on to the edge here, one of these spots here for the elevator. Now I decided I'm going to go with elevating this about 10 bricks high. I had put some bricks down below to see how high I was going to have it. And it's going to be 10 bricks high for the platform. The only thing is I'm really starting to run very low on my bricks right now. So that is a thing. Now, this is going to be the ground level of that. This is going to attach on the side like that for the elevator. So now I just got to build up the rest of the elevator a little taller than that. And the truth is, because this elevator is just, a symbol or I don't want to call it a placeholder for an elevator, but it's symbolizing in terms of its use, and it's not actually used. For this reason, I can get away with the height of the elevator being, I would say, maybe 4 bricks high, which is not enough for a person to walk through it, generally speaking. But like I said, that doesn't really matter when figures are not actually going through the elevator. So that's fine. I am really running low on pieces now. And at this point now, I think the only thing, and I'm glad at least now I'm focusing on the embassy. I'm going to call it the embassy. I'm focusing on that now, as opposed to any other things, any other structures first, because I got to make sure I have enough parts to build this up. Now, worst case scenario, I could get some more of the 1x4s by pulling them away from the and using the 1x2s in place for these the supports. But I prefer having, for this main center base, those 4x1 supports, and then for some of the building structures I could use the 2x1s. But the reason why that's kind of important is because that circular base, that walkway, is also not just elevated for the reason why it needs those supports, but it's also, let me see about using it's also used as like these attachment points are reaching over to them. How I have, like, every time a building is next to it, it holds on to the platform. And so that creates a dynamic in which that becomes a little bit of an important thing. So all right, what I'll do is, by forming this into a full, connected square, it gives me support on this, because I now have a cross section there, which allows it to kind of be a little bit more stable. And though this is just floating, it's fine. So that is going to be the elevator. This side is going to face the entrance along the walk path, and this side is going to come up to attach to the platform. So now what I need to do is so I think what I'm gonna do is this, because this might be the only way that I'll be able to get away with making this work. I don't have a lot of bricks left, to be honest with you. I really don't. I'm gonna push this back. I'm just gonna straight up dump a few of these out here. And I think what I'm gonna do is this, and it's not gonna work the way I want it to as much because once again, I don't have like window pieces or things of that sort. So that becomes a small bit of an issue. But what I can do is, because I want it to be very airy, a lot of light coming in, I can make window structures in the build, and that will save me some bricks. And I'll show you how I'm gonna do that. First though, I gotta know where is the elevator gonna be at. So I think first I'm gonna attach this, and then I gotta see where this would be. So one issue here also is I gotta also figure out where I'm gonna clamp this thing onto. And I don't think I want this floating too far away outwards because it still needs support underneath it. But I also didn't want it to be hovering too much directly over the walkway. Before I did, but the issue is this right here. I don't want the elevator being right across from the entrance path there. I mean, that's not a bad look actually, because then it's like people come down from the elevator and go straight over to the park, or the, you know, the kind of, yeah, park for lack of a better word, area. And then I could put this here. So that's not too bad, but I kind of would rather not, if it's up to me, not have this but if it's too much over here, it feels like it's too out of the way. And I could also always put the elevator on this side and then make this over that way, and now it's floating over this portion of it. I can change the orientation of this thing here to make it where the prongs are facing that way, but I don't really like the idea of that either. So, and if you guys can't see it all that well, don't mind, because I'm going to, obviously, this is just me finding my orientation where I'm gonna have this. Now I could put it a little more this way and do it like that, but now a whole bunch of this hanging off the edge, and I don't like that because I want a lot more support on it. So I may have to put it, like I said, going straight across that park entrance. And this would be like that. What I don't like about it too, I have to kind of move it over because I wanted to have, I don't know, I could go like that. I think I could just do it like that, and that way it gives me more room for the rest of the location as well. You gotta see how I feel about that. But so far, I think I'm just gonna do it that way. Like I said, I really don't want it to be coming straight across from there like that, but I don't think I really have much of a choice. And this is definitely gonna now take up a lot more. But I think that's what I'm gonna do. And yeah, I think I'm gonna do it like that. Is what I'm gonna go with. So that means that this gives me one space over one space over here. So I'm gonna be like right here is where those little prongs are gonna touch the first one. So I'm gonna come along. Like I said, this whole thing is reinforced with those. I'm gonna need some more of these for the supports over here. So let me grab 2 more of those. Of the 4x4. I still want to do a little bench area too, but it's gonna feel weird if I do the bench area under here because now you don't have like light coming in. It's fine. It's gonna be like something that extends off the side, so like this with a bench on it. But once again, like I said, the part about that's a little bit of like a little iffy is just the fact that, and I don't want to do too big because then I have to put more support around it. So I don't want to do that. I don't want it to be too big, but we'll see. That's going to be the afterthought because I got to make sure I have enough bricks for what I'm doing. So I'm just adding some extra support here, not for the purpose of that it needs it for keeping it solid, because this is not even a connecting part, but I'm doing that so when I'm pressing on the table on these edges, it's not caving in on the sides. And I'm gonna try to have a few windows. And I got a couple other parts too later on down the line that I will be able to use to enhance the entire build, like how I did with the Space Planet. And look at this, I'm already have a situation here where the brick is not, I gotta use one of these light gray ones here in the corner. But what I was gonna say is, just like how I did with the Space Desert one, I had a couple of extra, like things that I added after the build was done to kind of spruce it up with some of my extra parts. And so some of those extra parts I'll have for this build should be able to really jazz it up a bit. I got lampposts, which I think will look really good here. And I think regular looking lampposts can fit within, you know, the kind of Star Wars area without it looking like it doesn't fit in terms of time wise. I don't think that's that much of an issue. Okay, so like we said here, I got 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So a 2 brick will come right there, and that's where the elevator is gonna come on. So, and I already determined the height that's gonna be underneath here for support to where the walkway is 10 bricks. So, which is the height of everything underneath these prongs right here. That's 10. And then this will be the part that's like the elevator walking into the location. So that will look like this. This is gonna be our, like I said, our little embassy. So what I'm gonna do now is I am going to give myself, this kind of sucks. I wanna give myself a couple of windows, but the problem is, you know, I can't line them exactly with the 4 there. So what I'll do is I'll make it off centered from there. So say if I put this right here, and then we'll start, obviously a window should be 4. 4, or can I do 3? If I do 3, then I can't change it out later for windows. I don't even know, are there windows out there that are 3 studs wide? That I don't know. But what's funny is if I do that, it actually fits better if I do the 3 studs wide one for now. Just in terms of the way it's set up, it works better. than if I did 4. But if I do 4, I am going to 4 wide. Then what happens is I give myself a lot more saving of the bricks, which right now is kind of important. So I'm going to do that for now. I'm going to go with the 4. I think window frames, and I haven't used regular window frames in a long time, other than like actual regular builds. But I don't remember off the top of my head. Doorways I know are 4. I don't know if the windows are the same, and I believe that they are. So I'm going to put 1, 2. Let's see on this side here. If I do that, we got a 4 space there. 1, 2, 3, 4. I could put that there. Put another one here. And then, now one thing that's negative that's going to be about this, my thing is already curving right now. One thing that's going to be negative about this is you can't really put that heavy cross section. 1, 2, 3, 4. Can't put that like cross section bricks on top, which I like to do to give it a little bit more sturdiness. I can't do that under this kind of like setup, meaning I'm gonna take one window right over here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then this will just be regular bricks like that. And this one will come on the side, along the side of the elevator. So it's not going to be that big of a deal. These right there. And so what I was trying to say is that as this elevates upwards, can I do that where it's going to cross section over? Yeah, I'll do that. At least within these bricks, I'll try to, at least on that side, I could do that at least. Cross it over. I could do the same with this one too, a little bit. Just for the purpose of giving it a little bit more stability on those sides. But the rest of these, I don't know if I will be able to do that, because then it starts wasting too many bricks in the same area. So what I'm going to do is just repeat the same pattern. I don't like doing that because they're not doing like like I said before, a cross connection, which makes it a little more sturdier. But that's something I can't really get away with right now. This is going to save us a lot more bricks to just do it this way. And I think I'll go on the window a height of maybe about 4 high. So that's gonna definitely be a benefit, a very large benefit in terms of just saving bricks. And so that is our goal right now. What I'll do is take these ones here, 1, 2, 3, 4. These ones that are a little bit more odd shaped that I have going on over here, finish these ones off. I was able to do a little bit of cross section on these little spots there, but not the other ones. And then what I should be able to do, because I did this in the shopping area in the other set, the market area, I should be able to get away with then, you'll see how I'm going to connect them. I'll be able to take, if I have some of the light beige beams, and what I can do is I'm going to build across the window framing with brick, and I could solidify them underneath with those beams. You'll see what I'm talking about in a moment. And that should give us the sturdiness that we want to have in general in the build. So you can see here now it's so much more airy with all the windows. And I really 100% feel that if I didn't do this way here, I would not have been able to have enough bricks for it. But I actually like the look of this anyway, so that's good. And I'm gonna record this entire process of me building this building because I want you guys to see it in case you guys get into the same spot where you start running low on bricks. You will be able to do the same. So what I'm gonna do now is we're gonna start building across. So now I'm gonna take the 1x4s to solidify my build. Where I can use them, and in spots where I can't, obviously we use the 1x2. But so here, now this starts to create cross sections on the bricks. So even though they're lumped up the same way, this now gives them that a little bit more structural intention. And then what I was gonna say here is this: I can put the, I'm gonna build another layer on top. Underneath here, I can put a beam, because I have a couple of them, like these. And I did that on the market of the desert planet. I did that on the market to kind of keep it solid. So we are going to be doing that same thing here. And yes, me doing this whole thing with the windows really made a difference in terms of just having the pieces. So I'm really happy about that. And this thing started to warp a bit, but once I build this upper level of the top walls, it should help to prevent or stop the warping as much. So I'm actually really happy about the way this thing's turning out now. Where before I was actually pretty, not nervous, but I didn't know how it was going to turn out. And now it's actually turning out pretty well. And this should solidify that right there. And the only thing that I need to know about is if this comes through here, is that, okay, I never want to block it, but I am gonna have to build across there, that top. And I can do that now because now we've reached the height where we wanted to surpass the elevator part. So let me make sure that, okay. So I will then build on the top now from that portion where I'm at now. So I can go like this. Now it could have been a layer below here, one more layer, because there's going to be a little bit of a gap, but that's fine. You can see a little bit of gap, but that's fine. If I want, what I could do is just put a brick on top of here, actually, and then that solves that. And then it also creates stability here. So I can do that. And there you go. And it closes it up a little bit more. So that's fine. Come back around here one more time with these. And I think what I'll do is, let me close up all these windows now. Close up the underneath the windows now, put the extra support. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I need 8 of them. So let's see that I have 8 of the 1x4 beams, and I do because I didn't use up that many of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so we got 8. Okay, So I was just checking something like really quick, make sure my battery was good. So what we're gonna do now is put these underneath. So that gives us that support on the underneath it. And I'm not gonna waste to put them here. I could, but I'm not going to. Now, if I had the gray, I probably would do that. And maybe down the line, I will get the gray version of these same ones. It's about $17. So later on, I probably will. I just didn't want to spend all the money right now. Because like I said, at that time, I bought a lot of other things. But this definitely solidifies it. So as always, you guys, the point of this, like I said from the very beginning with the build, and it's going to be in the title, simple build, is so you guys can kind of do stuff like this with simple parts. You see, we're not using any specific parts. We just try to get very smart with the way that we do things. So that way it works. And you can see here. And then so now I'm going to put one more underneath here. And actually by putting that there, along with that piece there, it completely closes the gap. And then we're gonna come back around here with one more layer of this to go around the whole thing. And then after that, we're gonna be done with this. I'm not gonna actually add more bricks to it. So the window idea really, really helped actually a lot. Very surprising that it was such a benefit, but it was, because it really allowed us to save a lot of bricks. A lot of bricks. I did 4 studs high at least times the 8. So what is that? 32. I'm really tired right now, so I don't even know. I think it's like 32. Now, obviously, this thing with the that wouldn't count necessarily for the elevator section, but you get the idea. And here we go, and there we go. Now everything's good. Everything seems solid now, and that is how you can do windows without frames. So not too bad. It's pretty solid. You know, you can push down on it, and it holds itself. And so now. And I'm gonna decorate the inside later. I'm not gonna do that now with any of these parts because I got some little tables that I know I'm gonna replace it with. So I'm not even gonna bother to set those up now. To set up like just these as generic tables, I could do that as placeholders. But before I do that, let me first see that I have enough bricks to support. I should. So you know what? I'm gonna do that. I am going to create some of these things just for the sake of placeholders, and then I'll get rid of them later. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. Let's take maybe about a good 4 of them. We're just going to use the 1x2 bricks to create. These are going to be desks. I'm not going to make seats now. Sometime I do. Sometime I take these to just make little stools that people can sit on. I'm not going to do that right now. And I think I might even want longer tables than this. I'm not really too sure. Do I even have for longer tables is a good question. And I do. I actually do. So I think I want to use those because I don't really use them for much else. So maybe I will. I don't have a lot of these left though, the ones that are 6 long. And I could actually do these 6 long ones with the 3 ones. But the problem with the 3, where you do the 2x3, is that requires me to use more support beams underneath, and I don't want to do that right now. And these tables are pretty long, but I do want it to have that feel of like this kind of takes up a little too much space because I wanted to have 2 on one side and then 2 on another side. So I think I'm gonna have to go with the 4 one. Let's see. Like that is what I was thinking. Grab a bit more of these and then do it like this. That way there's this sense of, you got the 2 there, and now you can have somebody sitting back here, maybe from this side, or like, you know, 2 people sitting at the table area. They might have to spread them out by like having a gap in between their seats, but nonetheless. And then do you know what I can do to get a little more creative? I can, because I wanted to have it like that, but I failed the one problem, and I had this thought in my head, and I lost that thought right now, that I want to do a couple other things in the area around the other side by the elevator. I'm not really too sure, so I don't really have to do too much right now. I could just do placeholders, but what I could do is also like maybe an L-shaped table, and then that way it's, you know, but I don't know. I could go with this for now. You know what we'll do? We'll just take another one, put another table in there for now. And what I'll do is I'll turn it like that, and I'll turn this one like that for now. So these are the tables right now. So you can have someone sitting on that side, the outer part, and the outer part by the windows. And then that way, if someone comes in, they walk to the center. I really want to, in my mind, for some reason, I thought I was going to have more space than this. And I wanted to do something where it's almost like a, the front section of it is like a, I don't know, like some kind of area where people come in and maybe they're greeted by somebody. But if I do that, I got to get rid of these tables and kind of give it more of a sense of, you know, just changing things up a little bit. So I'm not sure how I want to do that. But then what I could do is I can take these tables here. I think this is what I'll do. I'll take these and I'll put them next to each other. So it's one long table instead of those smaller ones. And then what I'm going to do is, because I do got to maximize my space, I'm going to take these out. I'm going to take a 2 by 2. And this is also what we would use for like chairs to a degree. So that makes it kind of like not so cool. So with that being said, I'm going to take a 3 one. A 2 by 3 instead. And what I'll do is I'll lean it right against the wall, like it's a little table when someone comes in. So now someone could be standing there to greet when they first come in, and they'll be the person who says, okay, like, you know, if you got to check your items or something like that, you know, you can't just come inside. Another thing that I could do too, I don't think I'm going to hold myself to this, but one thing that can be done also, if a person wants, is just to give that illusion of like walls inside here. Not the illusion, but you could do like this, and then it makes it feel a little bit separated. So when people come off the elevator, you can't just go straight to that area, but it does close off this kind of open area vibe. But I'll see how I want to play around with that. But that is kind of a nice look where I can make it a little higher than that, but you get the point. Someone comes in. I'm going to end up having to put a roof on this, but I'm not going to rush to do that right now. I'm going to do it soon. But first, I just want to get the pillars support stands on the bottom. So this is what we're gonna go with for now. Some of these are just placeholders just to give me a vibe, but I'm gonna put some more thought into it and I'm gonna see. So I'm gonna stop here and I'm gonna put the supports in. And so when I'm done with all that, I'll come back to show you guys how I did the supports. No need to show you guys the support right now and how I'm doing it because I don't think it's a big deal. This already has its placeholder, which gives the placeholder for where this is gonna be, which, like I said, I am gonna most likely put this. I can move it sideways like this, and that's going to determine where this will go. So that's what I'm going to do. So I just want to show this really quickly. I have no mic on, so don't mind. But I just want to show this really quickly. So as a support beams, you see the support beams are starting to rise up. I had to make another support beam here. But instead, since it's drifting off on the edge where it is just in the middle of nowhere, which is fine. What I decided to do just to use the real estate is at the top of this 5 height, you can see another little flat plate. I put one of these there. Now I was gonna come straight up with the beam like that, but then I realized this corner edge here, I could put this platform here and extend this out more. So now you have an area underneath the embassy that can be used for something. So now it's not, it's a space that now has benefit. So I just thought to myself that would be actually pretty good. And even if I want to, I could also add extra support under here, pillars to support it. But it definitely gives that. So I just wanted to show that there. All right, so the angle is a little hard to see things right now, so bear with me. But for the most part, we are almost done. I put all the railings all across, so we have that going on. Let me see here. I may have to do something to change that because I realize that I don't like that that's not giving support at that spot there. Well, I got this there, so that's fine. That piece actually gives me that support, so that's fine. So let me bring this a little more into frame. You can see the building here. I put the support beams on it now. They are where they're at now. So you can kind of see how that's looking. You got the windows. So like I said, they can look out the windows. It's the tallest building in the section. So we've got that going on. And then also, let me move some of these out the way so I can push this a little back, even though I'm getting very low on my bricks. So you see here, we got that little section underneath here. For right now, I'm not gonna put anything there. It almost becomes like a little alley to a degree, a little alleyway of people might be doing some little shady deals, or maybe people from the embassy, political figures might come there and start talking little things. There's a little bench back there. So we've got that going on. I wanted to have a little something there, but that worked too because now it's also part of the support. So you can kind of get an idea here how it is. That centerpiece, I've been thinking back and forth between, like I showed earlier in the video, of shrinking it down in size. Not obviously the height of the main tree, but getting rid of all the green and shrinking its footprint. But I just really like having all that green there. But it is definitely something where, it takes up a lot of room. So that is definitely a thing. Other than that, I mean, there's still usable space there. People can walk around a little bit on the side, even though it's tight. There's a bench area for them to sit as people walk by. So, I'll see if I end up changing that or not. I do like the way it looks, but it is kind of really taking up a lot of space. Here, you can see the elevator here. Like I said, this top floor here can end up being possibly a rebel hideout or something of that sort. Now, in addition, I haven't done a roof yet. I'm just going to contemplate on how I'm going to do the roof. The only reason why is because one hand, I did mention I kind of would want to do like something that doesn't completely like where it's like strips, like maybe beams, just so I could see in it at all times. But at the same time too, I may or may not be able to do that. I would try to take something maybe like these, and I could do something like that. If I've got 2 of these, and then maybe the 4-piece. Let me see if I even have that really quick. Some more of those, which I should have that. Sorry, I meant to turn on my lights and I forgot to do that for you guys. Sorry about that. So maybe taking like this, maybe doing something like that, just to kind of give some kind of general coverage without fully covering everything. I can kind of do that, and then we can still see in between, because I don't think I want to do a full coverage. And then also too, I don't want to waste the resources on like a really big roof, because I'm really starting to dip into some of my pieces that are used for, you know, the base part of the of some of the, like, the buildings and whatnot. So we'll see. Let's see if I just could put this down like that for now. I won't get too crazy with it, but you know, I can make it where, like I said before, do the whole where I can pull it off easy. With the, I don't have jumpers, but you know how I've been doing it with the other rooftops. But I'll do that later, because right now this doesn't even take up that much space, that much to do it. So I can do that. And it'll just be one of those things where we just assume like there's glass and, you know, light can shine through, because it makes it, like I said, a very airy, you know, very visible light passing through kind of situation. So it allows that if I do have a lot of people in there, not that I have a lot of figures anyway, but it will create that dynamic of that, you know, you can see through it and a lot of light going through it. I got to figure out what I'm going to do inside there too. I'm going to probably put a plant inside there as well. So it's not completely done, but I may end up finishing this video here, and then in the finished product, the finished review of the actual thing, like how I did with the desert planet, I might add some small things in it. But for the most part, I could say that this is done now. So this will probably be the last video, unless I change my mind. This will probably be the last video that I'm gonna do on this. So yeah, and then like I said, stay tuned for me adding any kind of extra stuff. We're doing the regular review. I might add some, I am gonna add some stuff to that building, but other than that, this is pretty much done. So yeah, you guys, I hope that this build, you guys watching this, I know I didn't do it as drawn out as I did with the previous one and whatnot, even though I know it still did get pretty long. And hold on, let me punch that in. That was kind of getting a little loose from underneath. And yeah, so hopefully you guys would be able to, like I said, use this to inspire you guys to do the same thing if you guys need to or want to. And but like I said, this was a simple build, so that was the whole point of this. It's a simple build. It's not something that is super hard. You can get some basic bricks, like I said before, and that was demonstrated here. And then you can utilize just basic bricks. You know, I don't want it to be a thing where it's that complicated, because like I said, a lot of people have these very complicated builds. I didn't want that to be the case. So yeah, you guys. So as always, you guys, like, share, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.